Is
we
this
are.
working? Did the tweet
Yes,
go
we
out? Did
are.
the tweet work?
The tweet went out, and you actually tagged me this time. Congratulations, Boomer
Hey,
Marty.
I aim to get better every week. Matt's been holding his bottle of old line at the camera for like the last 10 minutes waiting for us to go live.
Marty clicks the live button, and then we just wait for YouTube to just ninja launch us.
Yeah, it's a good tradition now that we're starting with these live episodes. I'm in the Great American West right now. I'm feeling optimistic about Bitcoin after a conversation with Michael Krieger. We'll get into it. I got to hit record for the podcast and doing that in 3, 2, 1. What is up, freaks? Welcome back to Rabbit Hole Recap. It is January 14th, 2021. And we're here congregating on this dirty part of the internet to talk about Bitcoin this week in Bitcoin, particularly. Matt, how the hell are you?
Doing good. I'm doing good. How are you doing, Marty?
Doing good. A lot of fresh air out here in the Great West. A lot of opportunity. Seems like a good space to attack here moving forward.
I'm trying to go for a different backdrop for the freaks every week of RHR for the next few months. Let's see if I can pull it off.
This is a good goal to have. I'm excited to see the many different backgrounds. It seems like you're enjoying your time in the woods, which is most important. I want to make sure you're relaxed, you're feeling good, you're pushing out incredible content. Another great conversation with Janine and Ben this week. Now, there were some technical difficulties, but hey, it's just part of whipping it up like we are.
Well, it's funny because we were having like a conversation about the trade-offs of distributed networks and censorship resistance and having like resilience access to comms. And then I go live from my cabin in the woods, and just my whole router just like explodes. The whole thing just goes down and just restarted again. And that time I went through my phone. I think that's the key. I think we're learning as we're going here with our live shows, especially since I'm on the road. And I think I'm just going to use, it's a bull run. I'm just going to use cell data. I'm going to use cell data every fucking time from now on.
That's I said that to you after Citadel Dispatch this week. How hot is your phone right now?
Dude, it was so fucking hot, but it's really cold up here. So you can just put it outside real quick and you're good to go.
That's good. Well, let's jump into it. We got a lot to talk about this week. A lot going on in the world of Bitcoin, the world around Bitcoin. Well, let's focus in on the stats right now. The price of Bitcoin is currently $39,750. We will be auto stacking on this episode at some point. The market cap is $739.1 billion. As of right now, we are block 666,068. We are 598 blocks away from block 666,666. So prepare for that, freak. Should happen at some point between now and next episode of Tales from the Crypt. Now, currently over 18.6 million Bitcoin have been distributed to the market. Exactly 18,600,350.4 BTC have been mined. We're getting pretty quick to, well, it's going to take a while. We're 88.57% of the way to Bitcoin's full supply being distributed to the market. If we're looking at the blockchain this week, we had an upwards difficulty adjustment of, I believe, 10%. Let me find, 10.81%. No, 10.8%. I was looking at the wrong section of Clark's dashboard. Hash rate's currently kicking at 150.6 exahash, and we were sitting at an all-time high in difficulty at 20.6 trillion. I forget what the denomination is, but it's never been harder to find a hash that'll allow you to add a block to the Bitcoin blockchain.
Number go up.
Did the mempool clear over the weekend? Were you paying attention at all?
No, it didn't clear.
And in Clark's dashboard, there's no 1 sat per byte opportunities even a week out now. So
would you see what mempool.space is adding?
No, I didn't.
They're getting ready for our upcoming fee market, and they're adding a feature that says the minimum fee rate you can do to be in a standard default mempool, like the standard 300 meg mempool.
Okay. No, that's actually, we'll talk about it when we get to the Bitcoin Core version 0.21 being released. There's something with transactions in the mempool that was changed there, but yeah, that's something to be aware of if you're going to be sending a transaction as fees increase. people are storing data in the form of your unconfirmed transactions in their mempools, and they will start prioritizing transactions with larger fees because the likelihood of them getting included in a block is significantly higher, and they can get driven away from the mempool. So be aware, freaks. What else do we have here on the dashboard?
Whirlpool. Where's Whirlpool at?
Whirlpool
we hit
is
new all-time high this week.
Yes, 2,226.22 Bitcoin. A lot of twos in there.
I think that's all-time high both in Bitcoin and in dollars.
Yeah, it's $88.3 million in liquidity.
That's fucking big deal.
Yeah, it's pretty massive. I believe last week, it was hovering around 2,000, so another 10% increase week on week. Wouldn't be surprised if it has anything to do with the increased censorship and posturing from some regulators. Again, the regulatory landscape is very changing very much depending on who you talk to and on what day it is.
I think it's a mix. It's like a threefold mix, right? It's the Samurai stack has gotten more mature, right? It's still a beta product, but it's gotten way more stable and way more mature, and the education material on the side of it has gotten more mature, and the actual, like you read, like Ronin Dojo, the project has gotten more mature. So all these things have led to people being more comfortable with it. Then you also had I don't want to like attacks on privacy coins, right? Like it's maybe attacks the wrong word, but we've seen delistings and basically aggressive posturing by regulators and exchanges on privacy specific chains. Really the only one that actually matters in terms of usage is probably Monero. And then on top of that, we've seen just the greater censorship concerns that we're seeing on on a macro scale. And I think all of those things combined probably have resulted in increased usage, but it's really, really good to see.
Yeah. I mean, that's something we didn't touch on that happened last week or the week before when Bittrex started delisting Zcash Monero. Dash got thrown in there, and Dash actually came back like, actually, we're not that private. You can keep us.
Ridiculous. It's like the ultimate shit coin,
cell phone, right? Such a cell phone. They don't give a shit.
They were shilling the privacy focus the whole time, and the second they got delisted, they're like, we're not a privacy coin.
We promise. Yeah, it is. Did you put this on the list? I know we do have a darknet web getting taken down, but yeah, the largest darknet in the world stopped accepting Bitcoin.
I don't even know. I don't think it's the largest. I think it's like whenever they fucking. Oh wait, are you talking about the one that got taken down?
I don't know if it was the one that got taken.
You're talking about White House Market.
I think so. Yes.
Well, I think we talked about that. White House we talked about a couple of weeks ago. They only accept Monero. Some people say they're the largest dark market. Other people say Hydra is the largest dark market, but Hydra is Russian only. So it's literally in Russian language. So like it makes sense that, Western centric people would just completely ignore Hydra. And Hydra is the one who they don't do shipping, right? They're the ones who leave it in coordinates, and it's like under a bench in like Moscow or something.
Yes.
Which is historically the weakest point of these darknet marketplaces, is that you got to put the fucking thing in the mail and mail it, right? We should talk about these issues with hardware wallets. Like imagine if it's, hardcore drugs and it becomes a lot more difficult. Yeah. But then we also had the German authorities took down a darknet marketplace that was called DarkMarket, and all the headlines were they took down the world's largest dark market. And I feel like no matter what, whenever they take down one of these fucking markets, they're always like world's largest. It's always in the title world's largest. I don't know if it's empirically the world's largest. I don't know how you'd ever be able to find out, but they always say world's largest no matter what.
Yeah, these darknet markets reporting quarterly earnings.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah. Well, anyway, I went on a little rant there, highlighting that Samurai usage has increased. Combination of factors that Matt is pointing out. Like, it is getting easier to use Samurai. More people are becoming privacy and censor conscious in this crazy world. So yeah, if you're comfortable setting up a Samurai wallet, setting up a dojo, connecting to Whirlpool, highly recommend. Provide liquidity. Again, all-time high, sitting at $88.3 million 2,226 Bitcoin.
So let's just talk about that for a second. So Whirlpool is unique. Samurai Whirlpool is unique compared to the two other main CoinJoin implementations, Wasabi and JoinMarket, in that it's designed in a way to build this liquidity pool. It builds this pool of UTXOs that are all the exact same size, that are constantly remixing with new liquidity that comes in of the same size. So like, for instance, they have a 1 million sat pool, and that's just UTXOs that are all 1 million sats, and they come in and you have 3 existing ones mixed with two new ones, and it just keeps happening, and each round has 3 existing ones. And the idea is you have this liquidity pool where a high level, like, yes, there's a lot of Bitcoin gotchas you can do in terms of privacy, but at a high level, the idea is you enter this pool with your 1 million sat transaction, and you could be any of those 1 million sat transactions. On a high level, there are 3 pools, but on a high level, the concept is you could be any of those 2,000 Bitcoin when you enter and when you exit. And if we get that high, the higher we get that, the better it is for all Bitcoiners. It provides a additional plausible deniability and fungibility protection and easier access to privacy.
Yeah, it aids in the goal of making regulations, particularly regulations aimed at trying to identify Bitcoiners on chain. It makes them too expensive and too dumb to enforce by destroying the heuristics that are used to identify individuals on the Bitcoin blockchain. So the more people whirlpooling, the more people adding liquidity to that, you're not only helping yourself, but the rest of the network by helping to destroy those heuristics. So it is a process. It's not, if you're just getting into Bitcoin, I highly recommend you strive to get on Whirlpool and start contributing to this, but do your research, get comfortable with it. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out.
But the most important thing is, until you do that, and even after you do that, just remember that Bitcoin is not default private. It's not default private. You are leaking a lot of information when you use it if you don't know what you're doing. And that information will be on this chain forever because Bitcoin will be here forever. At least that's what we believe as Bitcoin bulls.
Yes. And God, I want to go down so many routes right now. Bitcoin version 0. Bitcoin Core version 0.21 for 0.0 is huge in some of the regards to some of the things we're talking about right now. But before we get to that, staying on the privacy tip, what the hell happened to Tor version 3 earlier this week? Was it a hack or an attack on the Tor network? Or I thought I read something that it was like an implementation bug that got exploited.
First off, I want to say shout out to all the freaks in the live chat on YouTube. Love you guys. Thank you for joining us again. You guys really make these live episodes super fun. The Tor issue, this was a pretty crazy one. I mean, so the Tor developers said, I think the exact quote was something like, someone's fetching information in a rude way, which caused a denial of service attack. To me, I just assume attack. And I think, like, when you're talking about these adversarial networks, like, you should assume attack. You shouldn't assume that it was an unintentional bug or whatever. It definitely was an unintentional bug, but the exploitation of the bug could have been unintentional or intentional, right? And I think it was probably an attack. I don't think it matters either way. You should just operate under the assumption of attack. But basically, the result is the way Tor's trade-off model works is they basically operate under an assumption that the U.S. government will not outwardly go after them. They have the protection of the U.S. government. They have the sanctity of the U.S. government that is basically giving them protection. So because of that, they're able to take some centralization on, at least in their trade-off balance. It makes it easier for them. So ultimately, with all these networks, when you're talking about distributed networks, the issue is Sybil resistance, denial of service resistance, right? This idea that you have like traffic that just keeps hitting you and keeps hitting your nodes, and it takes the whole network down. With Bitcoin, we actually handle that in a distributed way because we don't assume that the U.S. government will protect us. The strongest government in the world will protect us. And the main instrument there is the fee market, right? And there's this idea that if you're pushing more bandwidth through the network, it's going to come at an increased cost for you, and ultimately you're going to run out of money eventually, right? With Tor, what they do is they have these centralized directory servers, because like I said, they've been funded by the Department of Defense in the past, and in general, the U.S. government tends to allow them to exist and protect them. And those directory servers are what we're getting attacked. So ultimately, what does that mean for a Tor user? It means that if you're using Tor's most recent address format, Tor v3, you're going to have like a lot of reliability issues over this last week. And I still see these issues. I've been noticing these issues for Bitcoiners. A lot of times where you see Tor v3 is when you're connecting back to your home node, right? So like I'm on the road right now. I'm trying to connect back to my Lightning node or connect back to any kind of node service, a blockchain explorer that I host, mempool.space that I host back home, connecting it through Tor v3, you wouldn't be able to do that. It was hit or miss. And basically what happened was the really scary aspect is that the sovereign Bitcoin Lightning network pretty much relies on Tor v3 reliability. Yeah. Like this idea like that like we need uptime. If you're running an independent Lightning routing node that's Tor only, your node was going on and off over this last week or so. And technically there's funds risk possibility there, right? Like if a bad state gets sent, tries to get sent on chain while your node is down.
Yeah. Doesn't seem good, but they had a quick fix to it, correct?
Yeah, that's the worst part. The worst part to me, and maybe it's me just confirming my biases. I've talked on this podcast many times about my love-hate relationship with Tor, right?
Yes.
And I just don't think there's something to be said about culture of the community and the developer community specifically. And it feels like they're just not adversarial enough, and I can't do what they do. So I'm not saying like I don't appreciate them. I appreciate them tremendously. But just the way like concerns were like kind of dismissed, I felt like like think about when there's a concern in Bitcoin, like how much concern there is, how much messaging there is, how much importance there is to communicating what the concerns are, what the issues and stuff. It was just kind of radio silence out of Tor.
Yeah.
Out of like the Tor lead maintainers and stuff. So I was like, so to me, and maybe that's because the idea is from their perspective, Tor downtime isn't the end of the world. It'll be up again eventually. Like don't rely on Tor uptime. But for Bitcoiners, I think a lot of people assume Tor uptime. I think you just can't assume Tor uptime.
Yeah, it's interesting how Bitcoin and Tor, we talked about this in the past, becoming more intertwined. Bitcoin dependent on Tor for the privacy assurances that it's supposed to provide, and then Bitcoin potentially helping Tor by Bitcoiners realizing they need to leverage Tor and running more relay nodes or exit nodes. But I have talked to Bitcoiners, developers specifically in the past who think Tor is just one huge, and we've talked about this as well, one huge honeypot. And it's like instances like this where they just brush over it, like, oh, no big deal. It's like has the alarm bells going off. But we've talked about that in the past too. Like even if you do assume that it is a CIA honeypot, you should have that assumption, but it's better than nothing at the end of the day.
So let's go through just real quick. Let's just go through like some of Matt's shower thoughts this week. So like, let's say it is an attack. Right?
Everybody, take a second, close your eyes, deep breath in. 4 seconds.
Unless you're driving in the car, don't do it.
Maybe even if you're driving, just picture Matt naked in the shower thinking this.
So it happened. The attack started on January 6th, or the bug started on January 6th, right? Which was the same time the Capitol incident happened in the U.S. Capitol, and all the censorship events happened on the outside, right? The only services that were affected was the new address format, right? So anyone using the V3 addresses were affected. The V2 addresses were not affected. The directory servers for the V2 addresses was not affected. So the V3 addresses are improvements in all these different ways publicly for why as a community people on Tor want to move to V3 addresses. Maybe there is some kind of concern with V2. Maybe there's some kind of undisclosed bug that the attacker knows about that allows them to locate, de-anonymize, do some kind of traffic analysis to V2 services. And they're hoping that by continuously knocking down the V3s, that some of these dark markets will get anxious and want the money that their revenue provides from the dark market and will switch to V2, right? Or these censorship resistant platforms, and they'll switch to V2 and then they hit them. And I guess that would be that to me would make sense as what this attack is, right?
Yeah. Just a herding of users to a certain format. The freaks think you're a never nude person, Matt.
They're asking where the cabin is. I'm in between cabins. I'm just on a road trip. I'm just renting houses, by the way, guys. I rented the last cabin, then I'm renting this house, then I'm going to a cabin after this.
The cabin life, baby. Yeah, it is. I mean, again, tying this back to Bitcoin Core version 0.21, I mean, they just made Tor V3 addresses sort of inherent in the new Core releases, correct?
Yeah, so the timing was kind of ironic.
Well, is that why the pre-production releases had so many versions, because they were trying to handle the Tor?
I mean, this was a big release in general. It also has the taproot code in it.
Yeah. Well, should we just? It's
not activated, but it's but yeah. Before we get to it, I guess we'll just jump into it because we're talking about it. The now V3 is the default in Bitcoin Core, but you can still go back down to V2 if you want. And also, you have to remember that unless the whole network is running Tor, which they aren't, which has its own issues and concerns in terms of bifurcating the network and having, forks and stuff that we don't want, and different kinds of, routing attacks that could happen to Tor only nodes. If only a subset of users are using Tor for their Bitcoin Core node, and they're using it for their own personal verification and Bitcoin needs, they don't need constant uptime, right? That's one of the nice things about Bitcoin, the way it's architected, is you don't need constant uptime. You can just run your core node through Tor when you need it, when you're actually looking up balances, when you're constructing a transaction and broadcasting. And you want to receive a transaction or something. But with Lightning, that changes, right? And when we're talking in general about connecting back to your own node, usually when we're talking about that remotely, we're talking about connecting through Tor, and that's where you run into issues too. Like if your mobile wallet is connected to Tor.
Yeah, and if you think about potential applications on the Lightning network, particularly between exchanges, moving funds via private channels, that's an activity that'll need as much uptime as possible as well. So be aware, freaks. Be aware. Well, it was when I first saw the tweets of this Tor 3 bug, you're the first person I thought of. I was like, what's Matt saying? What's Matt thinking about this right now?
I actually just kept my mouth shut for there was I had a little bit concerned that like Lightning nodes are going to start getting attacked, so I just didn't say anything.
Hasn't happened yet. Could potentially happen.
Could happen.
Could very well happen.
There's something to be said there about like having watchtowers that are more used and more robust, that are on ClearNet as well, that are as like a service. So like some user without KYC can sign up to that watchtower, would really help alleviate this concern. That's basically, I guess, long-term is kind of what we're looking at.
Yeah.
But the problem is what we've seen with censorship in general is that those public entities could face they could face regulatory risk, right? Like if you're running some kind of Bitcoin service publicly on ClearNet, I mean, then you're a known entity that can be pressured.
Yeah. Take all this into consideration, freaks. It's not perfect right now. It is getting better. That's actually, I think it's good to follow up this Tor conversation with the Bitcoin Core version 0.21.0 release, because this is a massive release. It's technically a major release. They're starting a new version number in 0.21. But on top of that, it comes with a lot of really cool stuff that are going to help privacy at the P2P level, efficiency at the P2P level, UX around wallets with wallet descriptors. They're changing the way you can relay transactions at the P2P level to make that more efficient. Broadcasting is being fixed to help separate people from their IP addresses when rebroadcasting transactions. So is there anything in this release that you want to talk about first? Because I could talk about basically everything that was released, but if you want to start anywhere particular, we can jump in there.
The big one for me was Tor V3, I thought, and then like right before it hit proper release, we had this massive attack. And then obviously the Taproot being merged in is, obviously a massive step in terms of getting it activated. The freaks should be aware that doesn't mean it's activated. There's no central power that gets to activate it, but it exists. It's live in the software.
Yeah. So this is twofold, right? So Taproot's live in the software, and you can experiment with it on testnet. I think particularly Signet, which is a new testnet that also got pushed into the code base with this major release. So Signet is a more centralized test network that Bitcoiners have been pushing for to get merged into code for some time. That happened in conjunction with Taproot being officially merged. So now we can start seeing more people experiment with Taproot on testnet, which may incite more pressure to get it activated on mainnet, so people can leverage all the cool things it could do. I mean, I highlighted earlier this week, last month, actually, I didn't miss it. I didn't write about it until yesterday, the day before. But Nick, a Bitcoin Core contributor, has been playing around with Taproot on Signet before it was officially merged into Core. And he did something really cool with Taproot and ring signatures to help preserve privacy while doing a proof of reserves type situation, which is just like being able to have that merged in Core and have people building these proof of concepts in Signet, just showing what it can do, I think is extremely beneficial for Taproot eventually getting activated and actually use that on mainnet.
Yeah, 100%. I got a little bit distracted. We need more testing in general. As much testing as possible is good.
Yeah, you freaks. You got to put. Oh, you don't have two.
I'm on the road. I have one screen, but I just realized that now that we're live, not only do we have the lovers live, we also have the haters live, and they're just going to troll us. They're going to troll us live in our own troll box. So I appreciate you, freaks. Whether you're a troll or whether you're not.
Who's hating? Cheesing while you pop the bottle? I thought that was flattering.
So weak.
So yeah, so that's, you get Taproot merged, Signet activated, more testing there. Another big upgrade being descriptor wallets, which is going to make it a lot easier to separate UTXOs with specific spending conditions from each other. So which UTXO is a single sig, just needs a single signature to be broadcast to the network, to broadcast the transaction to the network, which UTXOs are associated with multi-sig wallets, which have sort of time locks in them. And so from a UX perspective and actually understanding what each individual UTXO can do in terms of spending conditions, this is a pretty big step up from a usability, UI, and just organization perspective in my mind. You can't stop looking at the comments. Look at him. He's mesmerized with you, freaks.
No, that was a good description, Marty. Thank you for handling that so elegantly. And you should feed your owl. He's complaining that you haven't fed him all week.
Well, you're not getting supper tonight either, Al. So keep crying. We mentioned the mempool stuff earlier. They're going to reduce the amount of transactions that peers transaction. This is me reading release notes on the fly. The amount of transactions that can be requested from nodes being reduced from 100,000 to 5,000 per peer, which was pretty interesting. And I think that has something to do with how they're changing the broadcasting of transactions, which we talked to Amity Udawar with when she was on. She described this particular problem they were trying to fix at the P2P level, which is the issue of rebroadcasting transactions from mempools. When you do that, there's a privacy leak in the terms of leaking your IP address on the rebroadcasting. There's some time heuristics. The way Core was set up before version 0.21 that will allow you to basically assume that a specific node tied to a specific IP address was sending a specific transaction, so you could assume that was their Bitcoin. So if they do that multiple times, it just increases the validity of that assumption. And so to work around that, they're increasing the amount of time between rebroadcast and actually changing the way nodes rebroadcast to try to hide the IP of the person trying to send the transaction, which is good.
Dude, you're fucking killing it on your release note reading.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really important. People don't realize there's this weird nuance with Bitcoin that it's 100% the most private way to receive Bitcoin is to use your own node. But when it comes to sending Bitcoin, it actually, if you really care about your privacy, you should be sending it through a third party via Tor, not through your own node yet. And like basically the goal there is to try and cross that chasm so that if you use Core, it is the most private way to send and the most private way to receive. But right now, it's just the most private way to receive. Freaks in the comments saying that I should launch a new show on TFTC where I just drink and read the chat. That's basically what Citadel Dispatch is. So check that out on Tuesdays at 5 p.m.
Incredible content. People are loving the Dispatch, myself included. Learning a lot. It's a great vibe. The audio only.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think it's funny that people just jump to live stream, but very few do the audio only live stream. So I think it's a nice little touch. It allows me to have NIMS on, which I fucking appreciate the NIMS, and I think more people should pump the NIMS. So it's a nice way to fill that little niche. Someone mentioned in the comments that Wasabi broadcast via Tor. Yeah, but it was pretty much unusable for the last 6 days because of V3 going down. So this is like the kind of things that we need to. People don't realize we talk a big game, and Bitcoin is very robust. It's probably one of the most, if not the most robust network, distributed network that exists. I don't know what would ever compete with it really, but in a proper adversarial environment, in an environment where we have all the major superpowers, like I guess the three major superpowers all going after Bitcoin, it gets very dicey. And I think Bitcoin still survives in that situation, but a lot of assumptions we make die in that situation. And one of them, I think, is Tor uptime. So I just want people to just stay humble with that and keep building and keep improving our own practices and our own knowledge. And
yeah, that's why I'm so excited about this release and the improvements to the P2P level, particularly, which are making Bitcoin more robust, more resilient against outside attacks. So another example of that is the addition of anchors.dat, a file called anchors.dat that your node will now collect. And basically this is just an attempt that if your node falls offline for any amount of time, the anchors.dat file will actually save two peers that you were connected to before you fell offline. And then when you eventually get back online, it'll reconnect with those two peers because you can assume that they were good peers when you were online before. And this is an attempt to prevent any potential eclipse attacks where if your node goes offline and you connect with 8 new peers that are all malicious, it can feed you bad data. That would be a bad situation. So now with the anchors.dat file, you can when your node goes offline, it'll save 2 peers that you had before it went offline, and you'll reconnect with them to try to mitigate any Eclipse attacks, which I think is really interesting.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Bunch of other things, new RPC calls, and then I think big update in terms of Bloom filters. I am not well versed on what exactly got changed.
No, it wasn't Bloom filters.
It wasn't.
It was neutrino compact block filters, which is the replacement of Bloom filters.
Oh yes.
Was already merged into Core. You could already use it in Core, but you can only use it locally. So you could use it for yourself. Now you're able to, through Core, you're able to broadcast those filters out. The most popular solver that uses those filters is Wasabi. Mm-hmm. Wasabi is just the only entity that's sending out their filters to their users, right? So it becomes a central point of failure in terms of at least denial of service. You can't look up your balance. You can't use the software, right? It doesn't necessarily mean funds are at risk or a privacy risk, but they're the only ones sending out the filters. So you have to trust them to notify you a transaction happened.
Okay.
Well, ideally, what we need is we want as many Bitcoin Core nodes, broadcasting filters. So that these light clients, if you're not using your own node, can hook into these filters and compare against each other. And I guess a lot of Lightning wallets, the Lightning wallets, are also doing like a neutrino first approach. I know Lightning Labs is Lightning Wallet. They call it Lightning Wallet, which is super confusing.
Yeah.
Uses neutrino by default.
So I wonder if that has to do with BIP 339 getting merged, which John Newberry, Suhas, and Luke Dasher were working on, which changes, again, there's another P2P layer change, which changes the transaction relay, the way you do it. Right now, you relay TX IDs, but this change will make it so that you can relay WTX IDs, the witness transaction ID, where up to this point, relaying TX IDs obviously works, but it comes with a little wrench that the witness attached to that transaction ID could be malleated or changed so that you couldn't have your transaction successfully relayed. This change sends the witness transaction ID instead, which mitigates that risk. Marty, as well.
Did you send the bent out midstream?
No, I didn't. I sent it out before I went on with Michael Krieger, so it must be a latency delay. I haven't put it on the website yet. I haven't had time to do that.
Someone in the comments saying it came in midstream, and I was just impressed.
I would have been.
You haven't skipped a beat, so that would really be effective multitasking. Or you have some like phantom writer that's writing the bents. It hasn't been Marty for years.
It was about Bitcoin Core version 0.21.0, so that's why I'm doing so well in this particular section right now.
There you go.
Can we kick Marty's out of the chat? I'm not liking his vibe today.
Should we teach him about censorship resistance?
The ban hammer. Another week, another breach at Ledger.
This is so fucked up, man. And they hid it. They hid it in their disclosure. They like hid it in their blog post about how they're mitigating the previous leak.
Yeah, it's all so.
And then there was like a paragraph in there. They're like, oh, by the way, there was also a Shopify leak that they reported to us. It's like an additional 30,000 customers.
And that was in September, correct?
Yeah, something like that. I mean, look, this is the negative of any Bitcoin focused business using a third party like Shopify, right? You have to trust them. This is part of the overarching thing. Why Marty
nuke the
loved
site.
You freaks enough to just nuke the just nuke the merch store. There's no merch store. Just print your own merch.
Yeah, we're trying to figure that out. I know people are asking. Actually, when I was back in Barstool last week, one dude was like, "What can you buy with Bitcoin?" I was like, "You can buy merch from my merch store."
I saw that. I was like, "No, you can't, Marty."
I was thinking we don't have a merch store anymore.
You fucking nuked the store like a week before that comment.
You can buy a shout out. You can buy a shout out if you want to.
I think we'll have them at the conferences. We'll bring merch to the conferences.
I like that. I like that too.
And then you can buy them only in Bitcoin at the conferences. Sats only. I just want to just quickly like shout out to you going back to the being reunited with Barstool. That was fucking dope.
It was fun.
I specifically loved that all the haters got to say that you went there at the top And then after Bitcoin dumped, it rebounded before we had another rabbit hole recap.
Yes,
So we're basically at the same exact price we were last rabbit hole recap, except all the haters tried to dunk on us in the midterm, and here we are dunking on them.
I hope you freaks bought the dip. I don't know if another material one around these price levels is showing up anytime soon. And with that, it's that time of the show where we auto stack. I'm stacking right now just to prove the haters wrong. I'm gonna stack a little bit.
My phone is over there, so I'm gonna wait to stack. But I stacked this morning.
We agreed to stack.
I know, but I'm not. I have my headphones on. I can't reach it. I'm not gonna jeopardize the stream. Freaks, all the freaks stack. And stay humble.
Stacked.
Let's go back to Ledger. This Ledger leak, I would never use this product again. I can't. I appreciate them. I appreciate them doing the steps that they are taking going forward in terms of deleting data. They discussed reducing where that data is held in terms of third parties. But yeah, it's just the whole reaction to it and just like how haphazard it was in terms of that data to begin with just rubs me the wrong way. And just even like little things, just like the fact that like their announcement on Twitter used a fucking affiliate tracking link or whatever. It used like a bit.ly. It's just like such a slap in the face. It's like you're using a third-party analytics platform for tracking your disclosure of another fucking vulnerability.
Talk about not being able to read the room. Come on. It's tough. It's tough, man.
Okay, the freaks are killing me, man. I'm gonna stack.
Yeah, get your phone. He's getting his phone. And while he does that, freaks, and you get me at a black screen above me, we're going to go into the shout-outs. We got 4 shout-outs this week. This is a section of the show that we really do love. So if you guys want to contribute to the shout-outs, go to tftc.io/contribute. You pay us $50 worth of sats. We read something on the air. We like this a lot. We love you, freaks. If you guys are listening on YouTube, wherever you may be listening, smash that subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up. Give us a rating if you can. Everything goes a long way. We're trying to get good information out to pre-freaks. Pre-freaks, what do we call them? Whatever. We got to think of a name. Fresh corners. I like that. Fresh freaks. So yeah, every like, subscribe. Thank you. We needed that. And we pumped like $500. My stack's up already. So
well, I let the freaks as a good freak, I let the freaks front run me before I do my market stack. It's the only responsible way to do it.
Where is the front run now? At what point in the morning is it? This was asked to me last night on Clubhouse. Actually.
I've noticed that my auto stack hits the top like every day now. I need to move it. I don't know. I don't know what's fucking happening. It just hits I'm not gonna say when it's sometime in the morning Eastern time, because I think that is like the dead zone. If you look at like time zones, like the dead zone.
So it seems like
California's asleep. New York hasn't woken up yet. And it's after markets close in China, right? Like 5 a.m. Eastern time, 4 a.m. Eastern time, somewhere around there.
All right, freaks. Who's gonna be the early bird that's gonna get that fresh stack?
Okay,
that's the question.
Alex is right. My auto stack is set to 3 a.m., but that's a bad time to set it. It's just always. I tried to front run the freaks and it failed. I think you gotta do like 4 a.m. or 5 a.m.
Can't be setting DCA buys while you're ripping a piss, eyes closed, peeing on the seat. 3 a.m.'s a tough time to get up a stack, but we are trying to front run Matt Odell, so I want proof that somebody's front running him. So we need something before. I'm going to say 4 a.m. And we're getting into the shout-outs. We got 4 shout-outs this week, Matt. What's up, freaks? This is what the type of shout-out that I love to get. Love to share this news. What's up, freaks? This week marked one of the greatest days of my life as my wife and I welcomed our first child into the world, a beautiful baby girl. Nothing puts life in perspective and washes away the noise like looking into the eyes of your child, but it was made even sweeter knowing that I'd fully charged life back. Ever been in the crypt or the freaks keeping me humble. Much love, fam. From an anonymous. Thank you for listening. Congratulations on starting a family with your wife, or welcoming another member of your family with your wife. Being a father's pretty dope. I think you're going to like it. Get as much sleep as possible. That's the only advice I'll give out right now.
Cheers, freak. Congratulations on your new fresh corner. Marty, your mic like cut out for a little bit. I don't know if that's actionable advice because it came back, so we're good.
Oh, Mr. Roboto, are we good now?
Yeah, we're good now.
Did you guys get the shout out? Do I have to reread it?
I mean, we got the gist. There was like a little bit lost there. But cheers to the freak who just had a little baby girl freak.
Yeah, and shout out to Sovereign Hodler in the chat. He just had a baby last week as well. Welcome to the Dad Club.
No, you can't give him a free shout out. They're never gonna buy shout outs.
You're reading comments. We gotta.
I know, but his message was literally, "I didn't buy a shout out, but I became a dad last week."
He said he didn't buy this shout out. Okay,
That's true. Cheers, freak. Thanks for the non shout out.
If you had a son,
on the kid.
Sovereign Hodler, maybe if you had a son, he can meet this freak's daughter at some point in the future, and you can have like a satrimony go on.
They're trying to censor us, Marty. That's why your audio cut out.
Hey, well, are we getting banned after last week? I think.
Wait, we got to tell the freaks about this. We literally got flagged by YouTube after last week's ep for just something completely random and had nothing to do with
for sharing a blog post by the Brain software team.
It was the Slush press release.
Yeah,
they got us a flag.
Brains press release. Brains is the company that bought Slush. They've been the team behind Slush Pool, just using the Slush Pool brand name because that's what everybody's come to recognize. But yeah, the Brains team website almost got us banned from YouTube. Shout out.
I mean, they've owned Slush for a long time. 8 years now.
They've owned a majority of it since 2013.
But anyway, Marty, I was right. We're going to be banned off of this fucking platform very fucking soon.
Very quickly. We got to figure out.
Don't worry, freaks. If you remember last week, we will get through to you. We will get to you no matter what the platform is. We will find you, and you can find us. Yeah.
Here's a short and a confusing shout out. I don't know if this is like an inside joke between freaks or if it was simply cut short. Happy birthday and to an awesome start. That's all we got. Happy birthday to whoever that was meant for. I don't know if that was like a tag on.
Cheers, freak. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
To either you or your loved ones.
Here's the third shout out. Class of 2017 here. A simple Apple podcast search of Bitcoin led me to this gem. I finally finished the backlog of every single episode y'all created. It's been a blessing to have y'all in the space providing quality education and allowing us to think freely during these tough times. It's encouraging to see the energy and clarity you bring to the space. Thank you for all the content and helping me improve my self-sovereignty, not only in Bitcoin, but in life. From at BLOKCHAINB, blockchain B, without the first C in blockchain. Shout out to you, blockchain B. Thank you for joining us. Very happy that you found the freaks, found TFTC, and most importantly, that the content's been helpful on your journey. That's why we do it. We're just trying to help other freaks out.
Cheers. Consider changing your name to Bitcoin B.
Got to pull it in there. Last shout out, another short, sweet, a little bit more clear. God bless Jack Mallers and Strike! Exclamation point. Yeah, God bless them.
Yeah, it seems like the freaks love that rip as much as I loved ripping it.
That was a great rip. A lot of soul in that rip. You said it. I love the idea of sats as soldiers being sent around the world to perform tasks. It's
I love the idea of he said that he used that analogy to explain it to like his team and like lawyers and regulators and shit. It's like I'm just like imagining Jack sitting in the room. It's like, so you got these soldiers, they're sats, and we're sending them around the world, invading different countries, and then we're going to send them to the other countries. And I was just like, but I love it. It's good.
And everybody's sitting in the meeting like, all right, we'll be back. Like, and Strike, that's how we got Global Strike, and it's here. Yes, that was a shout outs. Thank you, freaks, for the shout outs. Again, we love them. We love interacting with you guys. It's one of my favorite parts of the show. It's just a cool back and forth. If you ever want to purchase a shout out buying on Lightning or the main chain this week, mainly main chain, 3 on chain transactions were used to buy 3 shout outs, 1 Lightning.
It's because all their Tor only nodes are offline. Because every freak knows they should not run their Lightning node on Clearnet.
Beware, freaks. tftc.io/contribute if you want to add a shout out to this podcast. SolarWinds not going away. There was a breakdown of the attack from
this one's fun as fuck.
From a technical perspective by CrowdStrike.com. I have not read the full blog. This is your area of expertise, so jump into it, sir.
I think this is like a Bitcoiner's
wet dream.
I was gonna say that, and I was like, it's live. I should check myself. I think it's, I wouldn't say what it's like. It's what our threat models entail, right? And basically, it seems that the way the attack happened was they compromised the main compiler's machine, and basically every time they compiled a new build, every time they took the source code, which was clean source, the source didn't have the bug in it, and they created a binary out of it. They created an actual application that someone could run. That process going from source to application was where the bug got introduced, which is like the ultimate. If you're talking about a threat model, like attacking an update process, like attacking a release, that's the way you want to do it, right? You don't want, like, if obviously, if you compromise the source, you can accomplish the same thing. But if you compromise the source, then someone could see it in the source. If you compromise the build process and people aren't building from source, which fortunately a lot of people in Bitcoin world do build from source, but if most people aren't building from source, then both the compiler doesn't realize and the people who are running it don't realize. And you can hit multiple releases. Every time a new release comes out, hits the compiler, and it adds the bug or the vulnerability.
So it's the build system.
It's the actual, it appears, according to this analysis, it appears that the build process was compromised, which is super exciting. I mean, but not. It's scary as fuck, but it's super exciting. The build process was compromised, and the updates were sent out to users, and then the users installed the compromised updates.
No, and
this is SolarWinds to the people in the comments who are asking, which is that vulnerability we've talked about the last few weeks that hit like
all the
everybody.
Yeah, Treasury got wrecked. Grid systems got hacked.
Like 300 of the top 500 companies or something.
Yeah, it's and this is why it's so important that people like Carl Dong are working on reproducible builds in Geeks containers, which would help mitigate this potential attack moving forward. Which is like, yeah, and I completely agree with your belief that this is like Bitcoin porn, because it is. This is something it like highlights a very, very big attack vector that was exploited in the wild, and something that Bitcoin should strive to avoid in the future. And I'm happy to report that it seems that Bitcoiners have this type of adversarial mindset and are already working towards making this risk as small as possible. Again, if you haven't checked out what Carl Dong is doing with reproducible Geeks builds, particularly it's GUIX, go check it out. Go check out the episode recorded with Carl that describes it. I think he might have been on twice. So if it was the first episode where we jump into Geeks particularly. No, but
second time we just went deep into fucking coin selection.
Right.
Like, if you want to talk about Bitcoiners, I don't know. But anyway, I just this is something that, if you build from source, you don't have this issue. It goes along the trade-off balances, right? It goes along with convenience versus security. And the idea being the most convenient thing is auto updates. And obviously then you get pushed a malicious update and there's nothing you can do about it. And then like the second less convenient thing, but a little bit more security, is you don't verify shit, but you don't update automatically. So you wait like a couple weeks and you wait to see if like other people get hit. Right. And then the next level on that thing is you do use a binary, you do use a compiled blob, but you check the PGP signatures of the maintainer. So at least you know what was put out is the same as what the maintainer believes he put out. And then the least convenience, but the most secure is that you build directly from source. I guess, and then there'd be another level where you build directly from source and you actually can read the source intelligently and try and verify for yourself, right? And those are like the different levels. And basically, I think the biggest improvement we can get from people is to just get them to turn off auto updates. And like Bitcoin doesn't have auto updates, but I think that's the single number one improvement you can make. And with the SolarWinds attack is a perfect example, right? What they say, like 30,000 clients got hit, is like the ones that didn't get hit were the ones that didn't update. They just didn't have auto updates. They took like a year to update and they were fine. And
again, this highlights why Bitcoin being backward compatible with every version that's been created, or as many as possible, is a very high priority for Bitcoiners. Just in case something like that, like what happened with SolarWinds, gets introduced in a higher version number, you have those lower version numbers before it was introduced to fall back on. So again, if we're trying to grade Bitcoin in terms of its focus on preventing these types of attacks from being successful against Bitcoiners, I'm very happy where Bitcoin's priorities are at the moment. So again, I'm going to read through the rest of the blog post. I only got to read like the first couple of paragraphs, but it seems pretty terrible. I mean, it is obviously terrible. Next up, good news. Dev funding, Human Rights Foundation back again, giving out grants, this time to our boy Ben Kaufman, who was on the podcast a few weeks ago. He's been working on Specter, and the Human Rights Foundation gave him and the Global Mesh Labs team, backing up. The Human Rights Foundation gave Ben Kaufman a $25,000 grant. They're also giving the Global Mesh Labs team $25,000, and that's being led by Richard Myers, who's been on this podcast, one of the dope Myers brothers. Steve is the other Myers brother, and Richard specifically is working on Lot49, which I believe is a messaging protocol for mesh nets to take advantage or to incentivize people to propagate messages at the mesh net level using Lightning as sort of an incentive tool and a payment tool.
And a spam Sybil resistance DDoS tool.
Yes, that as well.
Yeah, great to see. Shout out to Alex Gladstein and the team over at HRF for their continued Bitcoin development. If you are not funding Bitcoin developers and you find yourself in a kind of king mood because of Bitcoin's recent price increases, consider going to bitcoindevlist.com, which is maintained by me and Dennis Ryman, also a freak, and contribute to your Bitcoin developers. Today, you can do that in either Cuckbucks or in Sats. And I like to do a mix of both. I have my reoccurring fiat donations that happen.
I know what you're laughing at.
And I also donate via Sats. I got my GitHub notification today. And I don't want to flex on American HODL too much, but it does. I'm currently contributing $300 a month in dirty fiat to our beloved Bitcoin developers.
Yes. Luke Dasher, he's looking for funds out there. He's been around for a while. It's controversial to many, but it's a dev I think people should be supporting. Again,
he's on the list. I am supporting him as well.
Boss.
He has one of the most, for whatever it's worth, he has one of the most GitHub sponsors out of anyone, which is the shitty money donations.
It's well deserved. So go check it out. Shout out to Human Rights Foundation. Shout out to Alex Gladstein for pushing the ball forward there, getting more devs funded. Again, this is a trend that blew up in 2020. It's good to see it continuing in 2021. That's what a lot of people worry, that Bitcoin development is not going to be as robust as could potentially be if you had something like a dev incentive built into the protocol, or we're able to raise funds via the protocol to pay devs directly. But I think the market is proving that Bitcoin is becoming such an important network, and one that needs to be maintained, and more importantly, that one that more and more individuals and companies alike are beginning to leverage, and if they want Bitcoin to succeed, they're going to have to reinvest in the development of the protocol. And again, that trend blew up in 2020, seems to be continuing. Shout out to my co-host here, Matt, for bitcoindevlist.com, where you plebs too, you can contribute. It doesn't have to be Human Rights Foundation, a Square, Crypto, Chain Code, Digital Garage. Could be an individual.
So Corn Guy asked, the free Corn Guy asked in the comments if it is tax deductible. This is a nation by nation question. In America, 501c3 is tax deductible. HRF's Dev Fund provides that. Brink, which Marty mentioned, is trying to get 501c3 status. They haven't gotten it yet. If they do get it, you retroactively get tax deductible donations. I am working on something on the side that I cannot talk about yet, besides what I just said. That will provide something similar, but maybe a better alternative, or at least an alternative, which is good to have alternatives. But if you do donate directly through Bitcoin Dev List, whether that's through GitHub or whether that's directly as sats, you're not going to get tax deductible. What's nice about GitHub is they just, Microsoft is just eating the transaction fees. So there's no charge there, besides just like fiat devaluing itself over time, constantly, forever. But there's no actual charge from GitHub. And then on the Bitcoin side, like it's really nice just dropping better money into people's pockets without anyone standing in between you. And because of that, you don't get tax deductible.
It feels good.
But if you donate sats to HRF, you do get tax deductible.
Yes. There's a 5013C attached to the place where you're sending sats.
If you're American.
Yeah.
There's a lot of nuance here.
Yeah. It's a lot of nuance. They're always trying to take your money. So if you can figure out a way to give your money to good causes without the tax man being able to get his VIG, always seek that out. Direct funding instead of giving it to the government so they could send hundreds of millions of dollars to Pakistan for gender studies. That's what our tax money has been directed to these days. Should we just jump into software? No, we got plenty before software updates. Our girl Christine Lagarde, the witch, wicked witch of the ECB, the European Central Bank. She came out with some comments in an interview yesterday, I believe yesterday morning, afternoon, European time, wherever she is, saying that it's going to be imperative that the G7 and FATFA and all those terrible unelected organizations regulate Bitcoin because it's incentivizing and enabling naughty behavior. And it's just real rich coming from somebody like Christine Lagarde, who is a convicted criminal and was convicted for negligence when she allowed the French president Nicolas Sarkozy to send hundreds of millions of pounds or euros, to a business associate of his directly from French taxpayers. She was convicted, but she got a nice little finger wag, tap on the tush. At the time, she was the IMF president, and she's basically walked through the motions into the position of president of the European Central Bank. The IMF, the International Monetary Fund, which she used to head, is one of the most corrosive and evil institutions on the world. They are literally private equity. They're basically just a large private equity fund that applies their tactics at the national level. If you go into the history of the IMF and their loans to countries in Latin America and Southeast Asia, the horror that's been wrought in the wake of the IMF showing up and trying to help people is pretty sickening. So seeing the Christine Lagardes of the world try to say that Bitcoin is enabling these terrible things when Christine Lagarde herself has enabled something pretty terrible. JP Morgan manipulating gold prices, HSBC helping Mexican drug cartels launder money, Jeffrey Epstein having a bank relationship with Deutsche Bank starting in 2013, years after he had been released from prison for the abuse and trafficking of minors, and he opened that account with Deutsche Bank and then was sending money, large sums of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars, to known co-conspirators. So laundering money, using the traditional system. So thank God we have Bitcoin. We can start to distance ourselves, and I said it in the bent yesterday, from these deranged, degenerate smile fuckers. They don't care about you. They don't care about protecting you. They don't care about money laundering. They don't care about. I don't think they care about terrorism either. I know I almost got in trouble for saying it. I think they like terrorism because it likes them to get more control, and they use it to leverage public fear and take more freedoms from people. So Christine Lagarde, you evil witch, go die.
Marty just looks up the YouTube ban list and just reads it every RHR. That's like that's basically the strategy that we're executing here. To be clear, she's former IMF. Now she's ECB.
Yes.
One win we had was the IMF tweeted out today, our digital currency is real, and they got ratioed on their poll as a dramatic yes. So that's fun to see. I want to read Lagarde's actual comment because I think this is kind of who's our boy in Congress, Brad
Sherman.
Brad Sherman, our boy who really understands the value prop of Bitcoin. If there is an escape, that escape will be used. So I think global cooperation and multilateral action is absolutely needed, whether it is initiated by the G7, moved into the G20, and then enlarged. The FATFA is clearly an organization that has expanded in that respect. So she is pretty much calling out the exact bull scenario that I believe in Bitcoin. Bitcoin is an escape and it will be used. And I do not think their multilateral action is going to be able to fucking stop that escape.
No, it's going to be resistance is futile, Christine. You can try all you want and people are just going to rout around you. Again, freaks. The G7, the G20, FATFA, like nobody, like I don't remember ever voting as an American on like, hey, yeah, exactly.
But I mean, just imagine someone like, I mean, in New York, we had the Triangle Fire. You remember the Triangle Fire? You learned about that in elementary school, where they had the sweatshop workers and they locked the exits and then they died in the fire. And then we had fire code regulations. Like, imagine thinking you're on the right side of history and being like, this is an exit and we have to stop people from using an exit. You know, right? Are you fucking kidding me?
Well, that really, that's a tell there, right? That she's speaking with that type of language. It means that they feel the pressure, right? They feel that their lunch is about to be eaten and they want to have the incumbent system persist for as long as possible. They're scared. That was an admission of fear from Christine Lagarde that she's not going to have the power that she has had in the incumbent system. And again, let's focus in on Christine Lagarde. Like, she gets away, like we talk about Carstens from the Bank of International Settlements. We obviously talk about Jerome Powell. We've talked about Janet Yellen, Ben Bernanke at the end of the day, Mark Carney, former Bank of England. I think he's up in Canada now. We talk about all these bankers and the private bankers like Jamie Dimon, Lloyd Blankfein. Christine Lagarde skates under the radar. And again, the IMF, if you actually look at the horror it has wrought on countries that it has given loans to, they basically, again, taken the private equity shark playbook and applied it to a nation state level in the past. And she's treated like some incredible person that it should be a leader in this world. But if you look at her history and the institution she's been a part of, and more importantly, heading, it's been terrible for the people that have been subjected to her decisions. And it's only getting worse in the Eurozone. Like, Europe is falling. Like, there was something earlier this week in Italy, like Italy's government totally dissolved. That's a shit show that nobody's paying attention to right now, that could lead to big headaches for the European Union, particularly the economic union, which is one thing that I highlighted a lot more a couple of years ago, and it was very much apparent more in 2011, 2012, 2013, when like the Cyprus stuff was going on. But the Eurozone, again, particularly the economic union, is in dire straits, where you have Germany and a couple other strong economies really pulling weight for the economies down south, particularly Italy and Greece. And it'll be interesting to see how they try to keep it all together. Especially, it looks like, from what I read, again, I'm not like very well versed on exactly what happened in Italy this week, but from what I heard, it's like a pretty big deal. Like people voting just like to dissolve the government, walk away. Not particularly from the Eurozone yet, but I think it's the beginnings of an Italy exit of the Eurozone.
I mean, I'm surprised the Hero Zone has lasted this long. I've been kind of an incorrect bear on it for a while now.
Right.
But they're due. They're due, and they will fail soon.
They're too-
I think to your earlier point, though, a thing that we see in every space, not just like the global elite rich people space, which I guess is what Lagarde is in. I don't know, like what is her industry? It's just like global rich people. Uh, People have trouble in
she-
reputation games calling out other people. They don't have the balls to call out other people, right? And I think what's kind of cool and I think what like the toxic, Bitcoiners, toxic Bitcoiners talk about a lot is kind of cool with the Bitcoin space is that we do have this like level of fuck you money. We do have this exit from the system where we don't have to worry about necessarily the reputation destroying our livelihood. That we can call out people, right? Because you just see in every industry, like almost every industry, the bad actors just aren't called out, right? I'm trying to, his name's escaping me, but when you saw like all the Hollywood predators that were getting announced, right? Yeah, exactly. They were all top dogs, right? And like no one wanted to step out of line and ruin their reputation and potentially ruin their career to discuss it. So this is a systemic issue we have across society as a whole.
yes. Tell
So
these people
shout out to
there's
everyone who's willing to step the fuck up and speak their fucking mind.
yes. Should be spoken. I guess we have to transition it to the Twitter conversation after that. Obviously, that's a big topic of discussion right now in the United States and around the world. Twitter banning Trump over the weekend. Pretty big blow to free speech in the social media era. Shouldn't be surprising that anybody's been paying attention. This seems to have been inevitable. The posturing from the tech woke, the elite tech woke, the woke tech elite, whatever you want to refer to them as, is that they were planning and trying to do their best to get him off Twitter, but it was a terrible, terrible, terrible move, in my opinion.
I mean, I think this week has just been a week that Bitcoiners have been proven correct.
Right.
It's just a massive validation of Bitcoin. I mean, I had my thought of the week in the Standard this week was that social media can ban the president of the United States, the so-called most powerful man in the world. But we can't ban the least powerful person in the world with Bitcoin. And obviously there's some nuance there. You can't ban them easily. There's like all this different fucking shit. But really that's the goal here, right? The goal is to create networks, create protocols, create systems where the least powerful person has just as much censorship resistance as the most powerful person in that network or in that whatever that system is. And if you don't have that, then you're going to have someone somewhere that is abusing that power. And I think the wake up call this week isn't that someone can get banned from social media. We've seen so many people get banned from social media across the board. It's that if it can happen to the sitting US president, if the sitting US president can get banned from Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all major platforms, YouTube, Google, and then if he moves to another platform like the Google App Store and the Apple App Store will just remove you. And then if that
Amazon.
platform also serves you, like AWS will just remove you from their servers. Like this concept that'll go after the most powerful person is a wake up call to people. But I think this is a systemic issue that we've seen happening. And Bitcoin and other censorship resistant systems, specifically free open source systems, are a direct response to this. This is the real actionable way that we solve this. You don't solve this with politics. You can't solve it with politics. Like in the ideal situation, what we want to see is like, obviously, like it'd be better and easier and more convenient for people if the largest, most powerful government in the world, the United States, cared about free speech to protect it. And they have in the past, and we got complacent. But now that it seems to be turning, we need free open source software. We need distributed, decentralized, censorship resistant protocols to protect our rights. Because if we do not have the leisure, the easiness of having a large, nation state protect us, then we have to do it ourselves with technology.
Completely agreed. No, again, this last week very much highlighted the blending of big tech and big government that is playing out right now, which is ironic because the president of the United States got banned, but it seems like a lot of the pressure to ban Trump was coming from people with a certain political tilt and weaponizing politics to force big tech companies to do things is a very slippery slope. Again, this started years ago. Milo, Alex Jones, but other things as well.
But this is like something I was scared about, Marty, right? And like 2020 was like a crazy fucking year, right? And one of the coolest things I think about Twitter, I mean, people delete their tweets, but one of the really cool things about this podcast is that you can just go back and you can just listen to us week after week, just comment on the events of that week and where we sit, right? And if we look back 6 months ago, when Trump unilaterally basically declared Antifa a terrorist organization, right? He was high time preference, right? He was high time preference, and I called it out at the time, and it was my concern at the time, is this idea that you can just label a large group of Americans, citizens protected under, like, I love our global audience, but let's just go American centric for a second. American citizens protected under the Constitution. If once you label them, and once you allow this concept that you can just label people terrorists, and then all of a sudden they don't have rights, we get into a really fucking scary situation. We get into a really scary situation where 100%, like I call the Constitution a shitcoin. I don't think we can rely on it, but we have to be very careful here. Like I believe that every freak should be against this idea that American citizens can just be blanketly labeled. And I was consistent with that with Antifa, and I'm consistent with that with the U.S. Capitol building. And I think people should be very careful here. It's a super fucking slippery slope.
Yes. When you start making lists and labeling citizens domestic terrorists, people are talking about like separating children from their parents for re-education. It's insane. That's why I'm so happy that we have Bitcoin. Like the conversation I just had with Michael Krieger, that's going to be out tomorrow morning. Highly
love that dude. Recommend
you freaks look out for that one. But yeah, that's what the crux of that whole conversation was. Hey, we can decide to play these political games and play into and say, woe is me, they're censoring everybody, they're kicking everybody out. Or we have this opportunity via free and open source software to build a better future. Like you literally do not have to wait for the incumbent political system to bring about the change you want to see in this world. You can go build it yourself if you are so motivated and actually choose to act. Like the possibility exists today. And that's what I hope that conversation maybe helps some individuals do, is break out of that left versus right, red versus blue mentality, which I myself obviously have fallen into and fallen prey to, particularly this last year. I think in 2021, me individually, I'm going to focus hard and heavy on like Bitcoin education and worrying less about the politics, writing less about the politics. But yeah, and bring it back to the censorship, the specific instance we're talking about on Twitter. It's sad to see. I mean, obviously Jack Dorsey is the CEO of Twitter and Cash App, which is a sponsor of our show, and having Twitter, one of his companies, make this move, and sort of justify it at the end, where I would argue it really isn't justified. It sucks, right? Because now, as people naturally wondering, like, when's this censorship coming to Cash App? Like, it seems inevitable to most people. It sucks for two reasons, because like Cash App's a great app to get into Bitcoin and get exposed to Bitcoin. It's widely accepted and used by millions of people around the country and around the world now. And more importantly, the team. Like, I know a lot of the team that works for Cash App now, and they're pretty hardcore Bitcoiners, and just such a tough look to have your boss doing something on one platform that is completely anathema to the product you're working on another. Yeah, it's a weird situation.
I mean, you brought it up.
Yeah, I mean, we had to, right?
No other podcast does this. No other podcast talks candidly about the CEO of their lead sponsor. I think, first of all, it's important that people realize that Twitter was already a dead platform. It just hadn't been priced in yet. And I think that people should realize that it is a different platform than Square. Square, he still has real control over. Twitter, he has like pretty much no control over. I honestly think he tries his best. I'm not trying to make excuses for him. And like, you can lynch me with him if you want. I'm not trying to make like this. If you're a freak and you've been here for a while and you think I'm just fucking playing the money card, like, you go fuck yourself. Like, I'm not. They do not pay me enough to do that. I actually do think that he is fighting the good fight for what it's worth. And that's just me personally speaking. Second of all, Cash App. I mean, we've said from the beginning, KYC is a fucking issue. Custody is a fucking issue. I've told people, like, don't keep money on fucking Cash App. Like, just don't keep money on Cash App. I don't keep money on Cash App. And honestly, like, they'd have trouble censoring me compared to you, because if I flip shits as a sponsor of the podcast, like, they would look horrible. Like, they would look fucking horrible if they held my Bitcoin, and I don't even trust them with like more than 200,000 sats at any given time. And that number just keeps going down because Bitcoin keeps going up. But yeah, I mean, it's an issue, and I think there's no easy solution. I think we have these centralized platforms that are easy to pressure. I tried to discuss this on Citadel Dispatch. It's a difficult conversation. It's a very nuanced conversation. But ultimately, we need more resilient platforms. I think the result is going to be, hopefully, more dispersion on a lot of different little smaller platforms. I think there's no easy, and like, I guess we could talk about Bitcoin Mastodon. We could talk about BitcoinHackers.org, which had its own little crisis this week.
Yeah.
Like, every system is going to have trade-offs, right? And that centralized system the centralized system like Twitter is always going to be the cheapest, easiest way to broadcast globally to as many people as possible. But you will always have the censorship issue. You will always have the centralization issue. You will always be someone else's bitch. They own your data. They can remove you from the service. And then you're going to go down. You're going to go down the scale, right? You're going to go down the scale. If you hand deliver someone a PGP encrypted message, that is the most censorship resistant social media that has ever existed. And that is fucking horrible to use. Like, you're not going to hand deliver PGP encrypted messages to people. So we're going to be at different levels of this trade-off balance. And with Bitcoin Mastodon, as we saw, you can use your own instance. It is a federated open version of Twitter, where you could basically run your own node and interact with other people on other servers. Or you can use someone else's server. And a lot of people were using friend of the pod, Rodolfo's instance, bitcoinhackers.org. And now there's censorship issues because you have to trust him. You have to trust him and all the liabilities on him for all the content that's being put out there. And you start hitting these kind of issues. So really what we want to see, I think, is you want to see models where people are using their own instances, or, I still think Mastodon has its own issues, and I don't think we're quite there yet. But even with Mastodon, the best case scenario for Mastodon is that we have smaller private instances that all interact with each other. We don't want all the Bitcoiners on a single fucking instance that can be logged, that can be tracked, that can be shut down super easily. You don't want that. You want as many smaller instances as possible. I'm not going to defend Rodolfo's actions. He is a friend. Disclosure. I don't agree with everything he fucking does. But he has shut down signups for Bitcoin hackers. He wants people to move away from his instance. He wants people to use smaller instances. I think long term, that's best case scenario for Bitcoiners. I think if we are going to use Mastodon, we need to have many small instances. And I think that's a stopgap, and then we move forward. And I think we have multiple tools at our disposal. We have Telegram. We have Keybase, bitcoinkeybase.com. We have a massive group of Bitcoiners over there, over 1,000 Bitcoiners now, with multiple different subgroups within bitcoinkeybase.com. We have Sphinx. Come join us over at Tales from the Crypt's Sphinx Tribe, tribes.sphinx.chat. And we're gonna have multiple different platforms, and that's really that's the way we're gonna see this thing go. And yes, it's not ideal. Oh, I wish I had a global platform where I could hit everyone. Yeah, 100%. But if censorship resistance is the important thing, we're not gonna have that, and this is a trade-off we're gonna have to deal with.
Right. Yeah, it's beware, freaks. Trade-offs exist, and it's a weird new world. We potentially fucked up the internet the way we designed it with all these centralized services up to this point in time. And I think, yeah, it sucks to see all the censorship going on when there's so much potential for good to be created out of all the technologies that exist today, and those in power and those in high positions within the tech elite are just deciding to squash freedoms, which sucks.
Just a reminder here for a threefold. Let's go threefold. First of all, like Trump was kind of on point with seeing it all happen and try and push back, but this whole idea of removing Section 230 is a horrible fucking idea.
Agreed.
We will see more censorship, not less, because Section 230 means that they don't have liability for what's on their platform. But if all of a sudden they have liability for every single shit post, then you're going to see more so-called far right or whatever content that is deemed, not allowed is going to get removed just voluntarily to protect themselves legally. The second thing is this idea that we can run on our own nodes. Yeah, 100%. This is the Bitcoin way, right? This is the way. Like we want to be able to use my own local hardware to do it. But you have to realize that this is going to rely on, right now, as it is relies on Tor. It relies on Tor. Otherwise, you're going to expose your IP address. So can we rely on Tor for uptime? I'm not sure if we can. And then the third thing is just like, guys, there's no perfect solution. There will not be a perfect solution. The perfect solution is that our government should not be actively working against us. They should be fighting for our own best interest. We're in failure times. If you're in a time when you have to worry about your own government that you pay taxes to, that you live amongst, that you have to fight them because they're not working in your best interest, that they're not helping you, that they're actively fighting against you, that's failure times. There's no best case scenario there. We just do whatever we can fucking do. We do the best we can fucking do.
Yes.
It's gonna be a fight. It's gonna be pain. There's no easy solution there.
No, we are debt serfs. What's up, fellow debt serfs? That's what we are. We are cogs in a machine that is run amok and is woefully off track. And people are going along with it. Most people are going along with it. Most people want the government to step in and to solve a lot of these problems and are willingly giving away their freedoms because their feels have been hurt so bad. I like what you just said there. We're in failure mode. Like it has failed. We don't have fucking free speech in America anymore. Like, are we free? Like, again, I had this like internal battle where the American ideals that this country was built on are something so incredible to strive for and something that should be strived for. And we should try to build technologies and systems that assure that we get those ideals or as close to those ideals as possible moving forward. But it's hard to say that I love the idea of America, those ideals, but America in its current form today, even if it is still the freest country in the world comparatively, it's not as free as it fucking can be. And you shouldn't be okay with that. You shouldn't just take it lying down and be like, oh, well, we have more freedom than those guys over there. So it's like, it's better, but they're trying to fuck you, freaks. They want to control you. And it's going to take a lot of work to build these open source systems, these open source solutions that get us our liberties back, particularly free speech and association in the digital age. So before you get marked a domestic terrorist for being a Bitcoiner, because that's coming. That's coming. Like all these people are getting deplatformed by Twitter, Apple App Store, Plaid, Stripe, AWS.
Did you see what Chain Analysis posted while we were recording?
No.
They said the far right received donations via Bitcoin.
Yeah, exactly. Fuck you, Chain Analysis. Of course they did. That's what, like, Bitcoin's an apolitical messaging protocol. And guess what? It is there when people need it most. And guess what? If you're going to deplatform and demonetize all of these people on the far right, like, love it or hate it, Bitcoin exists and it is going to be there for them because it doesn't know. Bitcoin, the network, has no idea that we label these people as alt-right and they have certain ideas and are using Bitcoin for specific purposes. The Bitcoin network has no idea. It will send the transaction of a Proud Boy as well as an Antifa member in the same block. Like, it doesn't care. But they're going to use this narrative. They've already tested out the narratives with the Silk Road, Bitcoin's for drug dealers and people doing shady shit on the internet. And now Bitcoin is the domestic terrorist currency of choice. It's coming, freaks. Front run it. Push back and be like, all right, asshole, yes, of course they're using it. They have no other option. But it's just the way it is. It's not the way. You can't nerf the world. What do you expect to do? I was listening to Tim Dillon's podcast and made a really good point. If you're going to deplatform and go after these people, have a witch hunt on these people, and just get them out of their jobs, get them even more desperate. Like, how do you think they're going to react? Do you think they're just going to go home and be like, they won, I'm done? Like, you're just going to enrage people even more. You're just stoking more tension. Like, it doesn't make any it's not de-escalating the situation in any way, shape, or form. You're just escalating and pushing people to the edges, which is gonna get us in a hairy situation. Not us. I'm not going to be storming the Capitol or going to any demonstrations. The best way to protest and to fight back against this stuff is to do stuff like we're doing now. Educate people about Bitcoin. Build on Bitcoin. Make sure you're using Bitcoin as privately as possible. Make sure you're adding to Whirlpool liquidity to increase the anonymity set of the whole network, not only yourself. Like, you don't go storming the Capitol building. It's not going to be as effective as running a full node.
I mean, I tried to discuss this more at length with two freaks, Ben the Carmen and Janine, with Citadel Dispatch. But my biggest divide is, if you ask, people get very nationalistic, right? Which I respect. I love America. I'm looking at an American flag right now.
You just took a picture?
Took a picture of the American flag with the sunset behind it, midstream, because that's how much of an American I am. But at the same time,
look at me. I'm in the Wild West here.
Look at you, dude. Look at you. You're just great American mining. I see the mine over there. That was my favorite part of Barstool, where they were like, wait, it's like real mining? Like you have to deal with resources and shit?
Yes.
But so the divide is, if you asked an American, can we trust the Chinese government with regulating speech and deciding which speech is allowed, which speech isn't? 95% of Americans, at least, would say, no, you cannot, right? And then if you asked a Chinese person, can you trust the American government with regulating speech? 95% of the Chinese population would probably say no. Where is that divide where we're fine with our own government regulating the speech, but we're not fine with another government regulating the speech? How is that how all of a sudden, our corrupt politicians are way more qualified to decide which speech is allowed speech and which speech isn't? And this is a global issue, right? And it's a perspective issue. It's something that people need to think about, because if you have a central party that decides what is the speech that is allowed and what is the speech that isn't allowed, you will always have problems. You will always have human greed. You will always have people stepping in and just only doing things for their own best interest. And you will never have a proper public discourse.
I agree. Politicians the world over are all terrible scumbags. Like Xi and company, they're going to team up with whoever it may be, whoever's in charge. Like that's maybe the one saving grace for Trump in my mind, at least, is he at least put up a facade that he was fighting back against China's encroachment, in particular their surveillance arm to the rest of the world. But if you look at the U.S. intelligence agencies, they want to be better at what China does and subject us to what China does. Like they're not going to save us. We have to save ourselves. Save yourself, freaks. Like, don't depend on these politicians to do it, or a tech platform to do it, or anybody else but yourself. Like you have to run the nodes. You have to contribute to the discussion, the education, the efforts. It's going to be like there's a good argument to be made that the experience on the internet, if we go this route, is going to be considerably worse than we've become used to in recent years. It's going to be more clunky experience, but eventually, hopefully, we can get the open source solutions to a user experience point that we're comfortable with centralized solutions now. But we're going to have to potentially take a step back in terms of user experience and usability to get true freedom in the digital age. It's imperative. It's never been more important than ever. But luckily, it's also never been a better time to build on open source projects. Bitcoin being one, Tor being another. There's many freedom enabling projects out there that people are working on. The opportunity to build this freedom respecting digital world exists now more than potentially at any other point in human history. So to end this message on a positive note, like you have a better opportunity than ever before to actually build this stuff out. Speaking of building this stuff out, there are many people building this stuff out right now. We're at the software updates. We're already like an hour and a half in, just getting the software updates. You front loaded this.
Well, I front loaded this. The week has been insane, freaks. The
Right?
week has been fucking insane. If you've been waiting for a week that validated the Bitcoin value proposition, you found it. This was the week.
Right. It really was, like on all accounts. It's been crazy. But if you're running software out there, here are the latest versions of some of the software that we're paying attention to. Obviously, we mentioned Bitcoin Core with its new major release. So that's version 0.21.0. If you're running Bitcoin and want to upgrade and see all the new cool things with Core, you can do that. BlueWallet version 6.0.2 has been released. BlueWallet's becoming my favorite mobile wallet. I've been using it on iOS and I'm just loving the experience. I just wanted to put that out there. So in Clubhouse, that's like one of the most popular questions is questions about wallets. And so, yeah, if you're a freak who's new out there wondering like, how do I take possession of my Bitcoin? What kind of wallet should I get? There's levels to this stuff. Again, obviously sponsored, but it's the way it was described last night. Like Cash App's level 1. Like if you want to buy a little bit there, that's level 1. They have custody of it. You really are just getting minimal exposure by buying Bitcoin. Level 2 would be moving when you're comfortable, small amounts of Bitcoin to like a Blue Wallet or a Green Wallet or a Samurai Wallet on a mobile phone. Getting comfortable moving it from one app on your phone to another and receiving and sending transactions with small amounts. Level 2, level 3, hardware wallet like a Coldcard, a Trezor, a Jade wallet, whatever it may be these days. Get comfortable with that. Level 4, multi-sig, whether it be by yourself or with a somebody's doing collaborative custody like Casa or Unchained. So if you're new and you're thinking about like, when do I move my stuff to a wallet? Go through the levels. Start with the exchange, then small amounts on a mobile wallet, which the UX around those is getting better. Then once you get more, go to a hardware wallet, get comfortable backing up seeds, recovering from seeds, protecting your physical wallets. Yeah. Just went on that little rant.
Well, I mean, Blue Wallet's so dope. There's some nuance there. Because you can use it in multi-sig mode with offline signers.
Right.
So Blue Wallet is dope. 100%. There's only 2 mobile wallets that I recommend anymore for on-chain, and that's Blue Wallet and Samurai. And Samurai's Android only. You iPhone plebs, just I guess you're just waiting for Bitcoin apps to just get banned on the App Store, right? And then you'll switch over.
Right. It's coming.
But yeah, BlueWallet is dope. They've been fucking killing it. So props to them.
Yeah.
I appreciate you. I especially appreciate the idea, this concept, this ability that it can be a signer in a Specter or a Sparrow multi-sig. That's pretty cool. That you can use like an old phone wallet as an independent signer in your multi-sig is fucking dope as fuck.
Right. Yeah, so BlueWallet version 6.0.2 has been released. If you're running that, go check it out. You got to fix the link associated with this update. BTCPay Server version 1.0.6.5 has been released. In the show notes, you have a link to an article about Bakkt going public,
which is also in the show notes. Freaks, I've just been running. I've been rushing to get up on the air. So apologies for that.
We'll make sure we get the correct BTCPay Server link. RaspiBlitz version 1.6.3 has been released. If you're running that, go upgrade those if you're comfortable. Sparrow version 0.9.10 has been released. Hexa Wallet version 1.4.1 has been released. Fully Noted version 0.2.9 has been released. And Rodolfo warned me about this major release for Coldcard this week. Version 3.2.2 has been released. That comes with a pretty extensive blog post. We will not read all the release notes here, but it's pretty big changes, mainly around Address Explorer improvements and multi-sig improvements. So being able to look up addresses and then utilize multi-sig easier. So you can view sub-accounts as they're exported. Finally has multi-sig wallet support on the app, I'm guessing, or on the device. You can enter any custom derivation path, which is pretty interesting. That's for more advanced users. I'm reading the show notes now. I told myself I want to do this, but yeah, big update.
Rodolfo called you out and told you were going to have to do it.
He did.
I love the idea that people are writing release notes knowing that Marty has to read them, which is how you know we made it. Also, coincidence? I don't know. He released it 3 hours before RHR, made sure to get it out in time. This is what we've been telling maintainers. You should get your software out right before RHR so that we can break the news live. You know, that's the way to do it. So the big thing with Coldcard here, the big thing for me was a request that I asked for. So we've actually had 2 Coldcard updates since the last RHR. The most recent one is 3.2.2, but there was 3.2.1 since. 3.2.1 moved the Address Explorer from like hidden in a menu up to the front. It's like the third thing you go down to, which is super important. Like if you're using it in air gap mode properly, you're supposed to verify every address. Like motherfucker had us going all the way down deep in the menu. So I made sure that we got that all the way up on the front of the menu. All you people who are using Coldcard based on my guides and shit, make sure you're verifying it on device. The address. You want to verify the address on device.
Yes.
The second thing is with the most recent update, you can verify multi-sig addresses now, which is huge. Because you want to verify it on device. And the idea is that if the computer is compromised, the device you're using to use your Coldcards is compromised, it's going to show you an incorrect address and the Coldcard will show you the correct address. And if they don't match, you know it's incorrect. That's the idea. So now we have easy access for single sig. We have multi-sig support, even if you're not using just Coldcards, but not every setup is supported. But even if you use the Coldcard with other devices, it should, if they use standard derivation paths, it should show it, and they're going to expand support there. So you can air gap check on your device. Another thing you can do if your setup is not standard is you can have multiple computers that are running either the same software or even better, different software that is showing you the addresses. So if you have 2 computers, one running Sparrow, one running Specter, and they're both set up with the same multi-sig setup, and they're both showing the same address, then you're probably good to go. And if the Coldcard showing the same address because it's a standard setup, even better. right? So there's like all different levels to here. And that's a good bridge, I think, for me to go into Sparrow and Hexa, which disclosure Hexa gave me I'm an advisor for Hexa, and I have a small equity position in Hexa, 0.75%, I believe. It's on matadel.com if you want to check. Both of them made easy support with core, which I think is super important, right? So Sparrow is massive. This is massive for Sparrow. Is that now they have BWT by Sheshek, which is basically it's an Electrum server that's built directly into Sparrow, so you can use it alongside Core, and all you need is Bitcoin Core and Sparrow, and you have access.
Isn't that the plugin?
Right, but it's built in now.
Okay.
It's the Electrum plugin, but it's built into Sparrow. So you can use Sparrow with either an Electrum server, or you can use it with Bitcoin Core. And what's really cool there is you can have two laptops, or two desktops, or a desktop and a laptop, and one is running Specter plus Core, and one is running Sparrow plus Core. And then you have your multi-sig, and both are going to show you the same address. And if they don't show you the same address, then don't send it to that address. Right.
So you have two different multi-sig quorum creators. So you're verifying through two different.
Well, you have two different coordinators.
Yes, there we go.
Right. And then you have whatever signers you've decided on, and hopefully one of those signers is Coldcard, and hopefully it's a standard setup, so you can verify it on Coldcard. You can verify it on the multiple coordinators. You can verify it across the basis. If any of them are incorrect, you don't send to the receive address. So we're slowly improving our setup here to be more resilient. It becomes kind of ridiculous to attack someone, right? And to the point where you have to realize, like, it's the age-old joke that we made in elementary school and shit, right? Is like, you don't have to be the fastest person. You just have to be faster than the slowest person, and the bear will eat the eat the slowest person, right?
Right.
And that's what it is. That's the unfortunate reality. The unfortunate reality is that they're going to send phishing emails out to people and go for low-hanging fruit
before they try to switch out addresses.
Yeah, they're not going to. No, there's except for the richest person ever.
Yeah, unless you're
someone who's worth billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin, no one's going to go through the trouble of trying to deceive two coordinators and like multiple signers.
No, it's logistically a nightmare.
Yeah, they're going to go for low-hanging fruit. They're going to go for the easiest.
So, freaks, don't ever give your seed phrases out to anybody asking for it. You should never be prompted to put your seed in unless you're recovering from seed. Don't fall for these phishing attempts. They're going to increase. That's why the news out of Ledger is very troubling. It's going to make it easier for those phishing attempts to happen against Trezor clients specifically. Last software update, Mempool V2 has been released. Major release. This is pretty cool. Supporting backends for Bitcoin Core, RPC, Electrum Server, and Explorer. It's going to have a fully functional block address and transaction explorer with APIs, the dashboard layout displaying fee estimates and other real-time stats, which has already been there, and support for multiple networks, including testnet, Liquid, and Bisq. So they're adding some data to the platform too, of some tangential Bitcoin software. Yeah, that seems like the pretty big one. So shout out to Wiz and team.
So the big thing here is Mempool V2 is already live on mempool.space if you use it, but now like the additional functionality that you've gotten comfortable with mempool.space, you will get on your own node, whether that's RaspiBlitz or Umbrel or Ronin Dojo. If you run your own dedicated Pi node, now you'll have that actual functionality on for Mempool.
Yes,
with your own node. But remotely, if you want to connect to it remotely, you're going to have to rely on Tor. So hopefully Tor will be up.
Hey, hopefully we can only hope. I don't know if I like that we can only hope.
I just want to, my conversation with Catan and Wiz was ridiculously timely considering all the censorship that we've had. You should go listen to that if you haven't listened to that yet. Like it was it would be a great conversation for today, and it happened before today happened.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, our boy Matt Odell has been on a content grind last 3 weeks. It feels like you've been on a show a day at least, or a panel a day.
We should talk about that. We should talk about my work at Bitcoin Magazine.
Oh yeah. Yeah. How's it been going? Planning Bitcoin 2021.
I mean, I will bet anyone that Bitcoin 2021 happens. But I have insider knowledge, so that's not allowed. So you shouldn't bet me. I'm looking forward to that. I mean, we're going to plan the best 100K party ever. I think, I mean, you can ask Marty. The big secret here is that we would, I mean, I would advise anyone for free for the better of Bitcoin. And if I can convince someone to let me bill them hourly, like that's the fucking gold mine. But the Bitcoin Magazine team is fucking fire. It's run by a bunch of plebs over there, and they're proper Bitcoiners, and they're trying their best. And I've been helping them, you know, construct their content and decide what's important and decide how where to focus their energies and how to make the best 100K party possible. And you know, I'm just looking forward to seeing how this all plays out. But it was time for a public announcement. But to be honest, like, the two of us have been working with the Bitcoin Magazine team for years. I mean, right. I love those guys. We had RHR live on the roof for their last live conference. We're gonna have RHR live on the roof on the next fucking one, and it's gonna be fucking a great fucking time. It's gonna be a great fucking time, and it's important that we have established media that's like a proper media outlet. That's not just like putting crypto in every fucking title and is like filled with proper Bitcoiners. And that's why it's super important that I think that we support Bitcoin Magazine. And they're not perfect. They're going to make a lot of mistakes. They have made a lot of mistakes. But they mean well. And that's been my focus over there.
When they have the stalwart from a technical journalism perspective in this space, Aaron Van Weerdum, actually reading his piece helped me write my piece today. I wrote his breakdown of core version 0.2 1.0. I mean, and anything he breaks down really is incredible. And everybody else at Bitcoin Magazine is doing their part to get quality Bitcoin information out there. Shout out to CK, excuse me, not CK. Got CK Snarks on the mind. CK, David, everybody.
We had David on the pod. Go listen to that episode. That was a fucking fire episode.
Yeah, he'll get David you bullish.
Bailey. We have Pete Chagua over there. Sorry if I mispronounced your name, is an OG. But the big guys recently, the new guys that have come over. I mean, Aaron, shout out Aaron. He's not new. He's been there forever. The new guys that have come over is CK, fucking Joe Rogers, and Nick Can't Mind. Nick was with you previously at Dig as an intern. Those are like, they're fucking just running shit, you know, and they're just trying to make shit happen, and they're just trying to provide a platform for Bitcoiners. And I think it's super important entering this bull cycle that we're just firing on all cylinders, and let's just fucking go. Let's make this year fucking insane.
Right.
And I'm super excited for 2021. I think Bitcoin 2021 is going to be fucking ridiculous. Not only are we going to be over 100K, we're going to be off the back of this pandemic bullshit, and it's just going to be fucking ridiculous. And then we're going to follow that energy directly into BitBlock Boom, which was the original 100K party. It just happened at 10K.
Right. No, and I think I'm terribly bullish Bitcoin as we move into 2021, right? Because I mean, thank God for Bitcoin Magazine, Bitcoin 2019. When that conference happened, it was pretty much we were sort of pumping that weekend too. It was right around.
Yeah, like 12. I mean, that's when I told everyone to stack the top. It was like $13,000.
No, but
But imagine those guys now they're up 3x.
Right.
That great financial advice.
Well, I'm like really bullish on this year too, because I think Bitcoin, in terms of being able to onboard new users and have them have a base layer knowledge and understanding of what Bitcoin is, its value prop, and why they should be stacking sats is better than it's ever been. I mean, the amount of, I'm not trying to suck our own dicks here, but the amount of content that we've contributed to over the last few years and many others in the space, whether it be writing Medium posts, producing podcasts, producing YouTube content, is at such a point now where our battle against the mainstream, the Christine Lagardes of the world, is so much easier, where we have such concise messaging and a swarm of, take Sailor's quote, cyber hornets that will basically find people spreading bad information about Bitcoin and correct them almost immediately in public. And it's going to be hard socially to overcome that threshold of education that's been reached. And there's so many people able to correct people when they're wrong, that this time around, like all the Bitcoin is dead articles, or Christine Lagarde's coming out and shitting on Bitcoin, or Steve Munchenbutt's coming out and shitting on Bitcoin, is going to be met with so much like good information that's going to be hard to deny. We're just going to steamroll these motherfuckers. Fuck these people. Let's just steamroll them, freaks. Steamroll them!
Marty, if we're talking about us hustling outside of TFTC to try and bring Bitcoin to the world as seamlessly as possible, to help as many people as possible, of course, because we're in it for the tech, 100%.
100%. We're a technology podcast. We're not an investing podcast.
Yeah. By the way, freaks. By the way, just remember TFTC. We are in the technology category. What Bitcoin did, and Pomp, they're in the investment category. So they are showing you investment advice, but we're giving you way better investment advice, and we're hidden in the technology sector. So keep that in mind. But we're in it for the tech. My point is Marty, you on 51 Strokes Barstool podcast, that was fucking fire. Like you
oh, thank you, sir.
You did a really good job over there. I was really proud of you.
Oh, thank you. It's hard. The pressure it's intense. And that's actually something I found out from being on Clubhouse the last month or two and trying to participate there, is like TFTC, the Bent, everything we do here is very high or low level, like talking about Bitcoin and nitty gritty news going on in the space every day, but having to take a step back and just field random questions about random parts of Bitcoin and respond on the spot is harder than I thought. So I appreciate that you thought I did okay there. I was worried that I was just like sounding like a madman.
So the important thing that I need to bring up for our super dedicated freak, I forget his tag name is you were on a golf barstool podcast. You didn't mention our charity golf tournament for Bitcoin developers. Like how does that happen? Like how do you end up in that situation and you don't mention our massive charity golf tournament that we're going to have this year?
It was to say that it was a fumble on my part would be an understatement. I totally missed the opportunity. I don't think the word golf was mentioned once, even on this golf podcast. Like I thought we would be like, oh, so how does Bitcoin relate to golf? And I tell them about how Bitcoin 2019, we were able to go play the Olympic Club because somebody invited us while we were in town. Like I thought that was going to be the conversation, but no, it turned into describing mining, and
it had nothing to do with golf.
No, nothing. Go check it out. I mean, I think I'll be back on the 51 Strokes podcast every once in a while now to give an update. But no, I mean, that's when I first started working at Barstool, and writing and talking about Bitcoin, that like 2017, that I felt like the need to get close to Barstool then just to help get good information to people working at Barstool, but stoolies in general. But it was funny reminiscing. The lesson learned is you're never going to be able to like shake people straight into just DCAing into Bitcoin. The way shitcoins work, they're just naturally going to be drawn like flies to shit. But as Caleb basically described, yeah, he learned his lesson. He got burned, learned his lesson. He's DCAing in now. So yeah, it's that's another thing in 2021. We're gonna try and outreach to non-Bitcoin podcasts and different audiences to get, again, quality information. We're an information war here in the digital age, and we're trying to do our best to get people quality ammunition.
Fuck yes. But like, we'll never forgive you for not chilling our amazing golf tournament that we're gonna have.
You're the one organizing it. You have not thrown a date out yet, so I've. If I were going to mention it, we're going to say, "Hey, you show up at some point."
Dude, you were literally on a golf. You were on like the most prominent golf podcast that exists. Is there any better golf podcast than 51 Strokes?
Well, see, I think you're getting 51 Strokes confused with Foreplay, which is their other golf podcast, which is actually like they actually get on courses and interview Tiger and stuff like that.
Barstool's like their best competition is themselves.
It's true.
That to do it themselves. But they should not have gotten rid of Bitcoin, Marty. Poor Barstool. They're not going to be able to compete on the Bitcoin side.
No, I'm making way more money by myself than I was at Barstool, but I love them.
Have fun staying poor.
Make sure you're dumping your cuck bucks over there on the pirate ship. We got that out there too. We got Big Cat saying cuck bucks now. I think that's a huge.
Dude, people like cuck bucks.
People do like cuck bucks.
Well, people like not liking cuck bucks.
Yes, I mean it's very powerful. Very powerful.
Bakkt
is going public via the New York Stock Exchange.
Are we excited about this, Marty?
I don't know. Like the whole SPAC movement, it seems very gimmicky to me. Like no matter whether it's Bakkt or any other company doing this SPAC. So a SPAC, I forget what it stands for, but it's a lot of ways, or the most popular way that people have been going public over the last 12 months, it seems at least. So what you do is you get a couple or a few companies that team up and they sort of merge and go public together, or they're like in this public SPAC, which acts as a mutual fund of public companies. I don't know exactly. I'm not well versed. Again, it seems
they merged with a public company. They're going to merge with a public company that's already public, right?
Okay. So Bakkt is merging with VPC Impact Acquisition Holdings.
You take a shitty public company, and then the only value of that shitty public company is that it can be merged with a valuable private company that becomes public without going through the process.
Yeah. So
which is more common historically than it is today, but has been a very easy way to become public.
Yeah, it's like an acqui-hire for a bit license or something like that. Yeah, so Bakkt, they're going to be merging with VPC Impact Acquisition Holdings, valued at $2.1 billion. Offering will be, so that's the other thing. They've been an IPO for this. That'll be in September. Oh, excuse me. This company held its IPO. It held its IPO in September of last year.
Does anyone use Bakkt?
I think some people do.
Remember when we were bullish on this shit?
Right. I don't care. Yeah, whatever. Bakkt's going public. I don't use Bakkt's products.
I mean, I just want to like talk shit to my past self.
The firm said over 400,000 consumers.
Did it matter? Did Bakkt matter? Did we spend all these cycles on something that didn't matter? Possibly.
I think so.
We don't even have our back senator anymore.
Right. I don't even think Clark's got backed. Yeah, Kelly LaFleur. She got she's not in Georgia anymore.
LaFleur is that fucking movie. She's LaFleur, right? Isn't that how you pronounce it?
LaFleur.
LaFleur is what's
Dodgeball.
The movie? Dodgeball, yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. I'm pretty sure her name's LaFleur, but yeah, she lost. And like, not only did she lose, like people didn't like her.
Yes.
It sucks.
Yeah, people hated her. They did not like her in Georgia. This is why we focus on Bitcoin. This is interesting news. So I guess we'll tie in something that's not on the list, but it's mining related as well. I see freaks mentioning.
We have to bring this up, Marty,
in the comments. Poolin released a hash rate token. I don't know how I feel about it. I mean, it just seems like cloud mining in a gimmicky way, which throwing an ERC20 token on it. In my opinion, I think there will be better hash rate products that come to market. I don't know if you need an ERC20 token to distribute Bitcoin accrued via hash futures contracts. It could be wrong. It just seems a little like over engineering to me.
They're trying to get on the DeFi bandwagon, right?
Yeah, that's what it seems like.
Is that you can use? It's an ERC20 token. It's cloud mining on steroids, right? Like people shouldn't do cloud mining. If you're gonna mine, you should control the hardware. If you don't control the hardware, someone's playing games with you. You will probably get fucked. You might have good timing. They might be honest with you. You might be good, but you should just assume that if you don't control the hardware, you're better off stacking sats. Like just stack yourself instead of doing that.
Yeah, you need crazy competitive advantages, and
that's what this is, right? And I think we will see ultimately, we'll see like a lot of these the big pools are going to all issue tokens, I think, because it allows cloud mining to be like kind of as frictionless as possible. They can scam you with the least friction possible.
Yeah, see, well, I'm not going to get into it. I need to be more well versed on exactly what Poolin's doing here, but I think there's ways to do this in a much.
So they're tokenizing their future revenue.
Yes.
Okay, and they're paying it out in WBTC because they need a native Bitcoin token on Ethereum because it's ERC20 for DeFi, right? So they pay you your mining returns via WBTC, which you obviously have trusted third-party risk because that's controlled by BitGo. And you have trusted third-party risk because you're using the Ethereum chain. But that's the general premise, right? I think what more do you need to know how to assess this situation?
Yeah, not much. Like, why
it's a bad idea.
Yeah, why couldn't somebody just why does the contract have to be connected, especially if it's being offered by a centralized operator like Poolin? Like, why does it need to be offered on a decentralized protocol?
Because it's regulatory arbitrage.
Yeah,
it's the same reason why DeFi exists in the first place, right? Is this idea that if they can pretend they're distributed enough, they're decentralized enough, then maybe they won't get prosecuted or they won't require KYC.
Yeah.
Right? They're able to do it on these. It's the same exact idea. Like we saw with Shapeshift, they removed KYC if you do ETH tokens only, right?
Yeah.
But they still have KYC if you do any of the other chains. And the idea is that they're pushing off that liability, and there's like a regulatory arbitrage opportunity where they're pretending they're distributed when they're not.
Yeah. And like I said, I think there'll be better hash rate futures products that come to market. We'll see though. They're experimenting. I think it's a bit fatty, FADDY. Again, gimmicky. I don't know. Yeah, I think it's a solution looking for a problem in terms of facilitating the hash rate delivery. I think it's been complicated too much in this setup. And that's just me, again, not having taken a full dive. Just instinctually looking at it and being like, and having talked about these hash rate futures contracts quite a bit over the last year with a bunch of people working on it. We'll see though. I like Alejandro from Poolin. Really cool dude.
Do you see the KYC article in Vice by Lee? Lee Queen?
Yeah,
mining KYC.
I skimmed it, but
clean mining blocks.
I thought we talked about it last week, though.
We did talk about it last week, but now it's in Vice.
Yeah, it's in Vice.
Marty, are you going to assure us that the North American miners are not going to fuck us? You're going to stand in front of the bull?
Yes. I mean, again, like I said last week, I don't think anybody that I know within the mining industry is seriously considering targeting their hash rate at this block seer pool. And then on top of that, if you would want to get into the individuals involved with this and their recent actions, one is Marathon, I believe, the Marathon Patent Group is part of this. Mara, people are really worried about them because they're buying tens of thousands of miners at a time Bitmain, and it seems like they have a bunch of miners that are going to bring a bunch of hash rate to the network. I'm skeptical of whether they're going to be able to execute on plugging those big orders in for personal reasons I can discuss with you offline, Matt. But on top of that, their CEO, a dude by the name of Merrick Okamoto, which is actually pretty funny. He recently, I'm looking for the headline right now, I believe as recently as last week, sold $13 million worth of Mara shares. So I actually wouldn't be surprised if this is all just like posturing. It seems like middlemen behavior where Mara may have like a balance sheet where they can buy these miners and pretend like they're a large North American miner with some clout. Again, I'm skeptical they're going to be able to plug all those in a profitable way. And then number two, with this Blockseer mining pool, just trying to play some middleman action by front running any regulation and trying to be like the regulatory palatable pool in North America. But again, we haven't had any conversations with Blockseer at Great American Mining. I think I've been pretty public. We contribute our hash to Slush Pool. Right now, we have visions of a North American pool that plays by Bitcoin's rules coming to market at some point in the future. But yeah, like in terms of North American miners actually being planning on pointing their hash at Blockseer, I haven't met any, and I talked to quite a few. And then yeah, the mining pool game too is not something you just get into. It's like to assume that the Blockseer group is actually going to run a good pool is another assumption that I think many people are overestimating at this.
Well, Marathon says they have 8% of the hash rate. Do you disagree with that?
Yes.
No, they have less. You think they have less?
I mean, they may have 8% of hash rate if they add in miners they don't have plugged in that they
doesn't count. That doesn't count.
No, I don't think they have 8%.
Ask anyone who ordered a Butterfly Labs pre-order about what you do in terms of
right. Yeah, I think that's
of counting miner pre-order hash rate.
It's a very strong claim.
Yeah, I mean, I love you guys. I love you, Marty. Everyone I know in North American mining, I love. I am ready for you guys to be the enemy. I do not expect. When Marty says to me, "Are we a free country?" In my mind, I laugh. Right, and I wonder what happens if North American mining gets to a certain threshold, and I think if you ask any miner what they want ultimately is they don't want 70% of the mining in China, they don't want 70% of the mining in America, they want it distributed as much as possible, and I think it helps every single miner globally if we have. If we have it as distributed as possible, and really ultimately what all these different regulations are gonna do is they're gonna distribute it, right? Is like this idea that in any given country, if they come down too hard, it gets distributed, and we saw that in China, and we're kind of seeing that in America now, and you're just gonna have it in all different places. You're gonna have smaller miners in all different places, and that's best case scenario for Bitcoin.
Yeah. And again, not to talk my own book, but that's why I think getting oil and gas producers integrated with Bitcoin mining is very important, especially smaller producers that aren't like blue chip multinational. Like, and again, particularly here in the United States, Mexico, and Canada, it's like a really interesting scenario that's presented itself. The fact that the sources of energy, in this case natural gas, are spread across many borders, whether it be national or state borders, and then beyond that, company borders as well. So you have distribution in actors between small producers, medium producers, large producers, between states. You have different regulations in different states. Wyoming's got a lot of gas in it. They seem to be pretty forward thinking, goes beyond countries, from down to Mexico up to Canada. So in terms of North America, like in trying to game theory this out and think about how it can be robust, it's getting as many producers at all levels, as many states at all levels, and all countries in North America involved, just to have that arbitrage on each level, whether it be the corporate, state, or nation state level. But yeah, it's something that everybody should be aware of. And like I said last week, it's something why I think even during these bull markets, we should be pushing the activation of Taproot and the testing and activation or rollout of Stratum V2. Stratum V2 would severely reduce the ability for regulators to actually enforce these types of actions on mining pools, because the mining pool is not the central actor anymore. The individual miners within the pool that are deciding to create their own block templates are the actors in this case. And then once that happens, again, it gets back to that scenario in which the regulations are too dumb and too expensive to enforce, because you, in that case, expect every individual miner within that mining pool to KYC every other miner. And that's just logistically not going to happen, nor is it wise, because you don't want a bunch of individuals holding each other's personal information on servers that they store at their houses.
Yeah, Freak Art by Design mentioned that he thinks Stratum V2 is more important than Taproot, and I would tend to agree with him. Like this idea, basically, like the idea is that we have like 5 or 6 mining pools that are centralized third parties that are security holes. And once you have Stratum V2, it doesn't matter. Like we could have one mining pool. And we'd be fine, because the individual miners, the guys that are contributing work, would get to decide what gets included in each block. And once you have that, then all of a sudden everything is nice and distributed. And yes, that goes against the convenience versus security trade-off. And that'll only happen if we get attacked. Basically, you only see that kind of adoption if we get attacked. But we need to have the tools there available for people to move to in that situation.
Yeah. No, and again, just to wrap up this particular subject, I think you freaks have taken into consideration the likelihood of a successful and sustained attack of this nature, particularly considering the little amount of hash rate this Blockseer pool has. They'd have to, again, we had this discussion last week. If you guys want to go check that out and understand the full argument, but it basically blocks down to, like, they can have this pool, and hey, they could just mine blocks with transactions and exclude particular transactions they don't want to. An individual miner could do that today if they wanted to. A mining pool could do that today if they want to. Where it gets hairy is whether or not they're reorging blocks that include certain transactions to wipe them off the ledger. And to do that successfully and for a sustained period of time is very expensive, and you need a considerable amount of hash rate. And even if they're reporting 8%, I don't feel like 8% would be nearly enough to do that successfully without getting reorged subsequently and wasting your money. So a bunch of nuance to this, like everything else, but definitely something to be aware of. Like this, in my mind, that is the mining area, whether it be at the mining pool level or the chip fabrication level, is the biggest Achilles heel. And that's why outside of this, that's why I'm working for Great American Mining, because I want to make sure that Bitcoin mining is distributed enough and done in a way that is within Bitcoin's ethos, or in the spirit of Bitcoin's ethos. And Todd and team at Great American Mining are that's what we're trying to do. So that's why I hitched my wagon to this country, company,
and country.
Yeah.
I mean, you've been very patriotic to almost a fault.
My wagon's like over there, actually.
He's just pitching his wagon to everything. Like people just walk by, and like all of a sudden the wagon gets attached to them.
Yeah.
I appreciate the insight. I appreciate the discretion in terms of mining, because that is your, it is your career, and I appreciate that. In terms of art by design, he asked me if he said, did I go a little bit extreme that one pool would be okay? Yes. Like I threw out nuance, and I just went straight for the extreme example. You do not want, like, obviously we'd have other issues besides block selection if we only had one mining pool. Like, we don't want to have just one mining pool, but the point is that if we had one mining pool and we had Stratum V2 and you're constructing your blocks, it's not like the worst situation ever. It was like an extreme example to explain the situation.
And you've been forgiven.
Yeah, he forgave me. That I appreciate that. But I think that I appreciate. This is what's cool about the live chat, because that's an important distinction to make to the freaks.
It's true.
Is that it was meant to be an example, but ideally we want, no matter what, we want to have multiple mining pools competing around the world. We want to have as many as possible. You want to have as many as possible competing, but then you want the individual miners also having more power over their so-called landlords, right? Like they're the people that are deciding. You don't want 6 people deciding what gets constructed in a block. Obviously, then we have issues.
No, I mean, luckily the ability to switch between pools is very easy today, but if we're being honest with ourselves here, there's very few pools. It would take the combination of very few pools to amass considerably more than 50% of the network hash rate right now. So yeah, I agree with art design as well. Like Stratum V2, from a resiliency and robustness and security perspective, is probably more imperative than Taproot at this given point in time. But so happy to see the Square Crypto.
Both.
Let's obviously let's get both. But yeah, it's great to see the Brains OS team building that out. Now they have some help. Square Crypto, we talked about last week, sent a grant to an Anon dev who's going to be working on that specifically. So hopefully we get this to market. At least we're thinking about it right now, freaks. Get the message out there. Stratum V2. FinCEN. They're extending the comment period. Our comments worked, freaks.
Did you provide a comment, Marty?
I may have. Yes, I did. Yeah, I doxed my IP. You know, you have to speak up. And now you give me the FinCEN link directly. I don't have my VPN on because of recording. You didn't give me the archive link. Too late. I'm on FinCEN. Welcome. Hey, what's up, FBI agent? FinCEN extends the comment period for...
You don't need your IP address, Marty. They know who you are. You're pro Bitcoin.
I think I'm on every list that is related to Bitcoin that is out there. Yeah, they extended it, what, 30 days?
15
days.
45 days for the shitty part of the rule and 15 days for the important part of the rule.
Okay. Keep commenting, freaks.
And also, the guy that everyone was super excited about for his stablecoin bullshit, he's stepping down for the new administration.
Yeah, Brian.
Former lawyer of...
Yeah, the comptroller of the currency. Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. What is it? The 14th? Biden gets inaugurated a week from today. We'll probably be... Is it 21st or 20th?
It's the 20th, isn't it?
I don't know.
We'll do the day after. The day after, you guys will get a live broadcast.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see what the Biden administration brings in terms of regulation towards Bitcoin. I thought I saw one of his appointees today is like very bullish on Bitcoin.
Look, our government is very effectively corrupt. Like we're gonna have like all the shitcoiners are gonna be in this administration. I'm not worried about that. My worry is self-sovereign Bitcoin users, and that will be a concern. I think that'd be a concern regardless of who got elected.
I agree.
And we just have to look out for our own. We just have to be. You just have to fight. Like, people are gonna have to fight, man.
No apathy. You can't be complacent. You can't be apathetic. Like I said earlier, the opportunity to build your way out of these political problems has never been greater. You do not need to wait on the politicians to pass laws to bring the change that you want to see in the world. You can go build it.
Can we talk about like the normalization of like stable coins? Like this idea, like how, like it feels so anti-Bitcoin. Like it just happened. Like it's blockchain, not Bitcoin. That's what it is, right? It's this bullshit. It's the same bullshit that we already had that has evolved to a new version, and we're seeing it happen in real time. And I fuck them, right? Like what
Well,
am I supposed to say here?
I'll steel man this. I'll be the devil's advocate here. It seems that particular parts of the world where stomaching Bitcoin's day-to-day volatility is detrimental to the ability to purchase day-to-day goods. Stable coins fill a niche role as Bitcoin's in its monetization event. Obviously, we've had Matt Alborg on the podcast a few times, and he's described this type of usage of stable coins. But yeah, like we said, I've said this on the podcast before too. I see stable coins just as a temporary stopgap for, wait, let me finish. Temporary stopgap. I don't think stable coins are stable. I think they're inherently unstable.
Right.
I don't plan on holding any of them. I think they will all trend to zero sats at the end of the day.
But why are we calling them stable coins? Like, how do we end up in this situation that we're calling them stable coins? Like, how is this the reality that we live in?
I think maybe it was an attempt to get away from and delineate between pegged currencies. They didn't want to use pegged coins.
But they're all pegged.
Right? I know. I think it was maybe, I don't know, maybe it's just stems from like to sort of define like a stable coin as cryptocurrency specific. A pegged currency is specific to the fiat world. Banker was that huge ICO.
So basically I woke up this morning, right? And I had to move out of my cabin and I drove to this house. And I said to myself, I was like, we've been calling it stable coins for a bit now. Like, I feel like they pulled one over us. You know, it's like the unhosted wallets versus just self-hosted, unhosted, hosted bullshit. You know, like if you have a wallet that you control the keys, it's a fucking Bitcoin wallet, right? Like, how did we end up in a situation where we're calling things stable coins? Like, how do we end up in a situation with the controller of the currency, the guy who's like in charge of currencies, like, yeah, we have these stable coins, like they're like inherently pegged to our like shitty fucking money, and like we have this shitty money, and like we have a digital equivalent of that shitty money that you can control a private key and you can receive shitty money via that private key. Like, how did we end up in that situation? Like, what the fuck? What fucking happened? No one fucking pushed back and it just happened.
I'm trying to look up the history of it right now. So the first stable coin, as we would define it today, was created at BitUSD in new bits. I think Dan Larimer might have been a part of that. Could be wrong though. Or I'm thinking BitShares.
Of course he was involved with it, man.
I think so. 2014 BitUSD and new bits. I don't know if they referred to it. I'm trying to find if they referred to it as a stable coin.
They're not stable. They're going down it's like
obviously
like stable coins. No,
I'm trying to get to the etymology of the word. That's where I'm trying to get to. Like, who first said it was it the first US dollar pegged cryptocurrency that referred to itself as a stable coin? Just stuck, or is it something that was thrown on later in life? If any of you freaks know, I can't find it. That'd be interesting to know. Like, was Tether called a stable coin when it was
like, yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's not even Tether, right? Like, it's like if Tether did it, I understand. Like, they're like kind of black market people, and they're like trying their best to like make a black market dollar, and like I'm cool with that. Like, oh, you want it's stable. It's attached to this dollar, but black market wise, you don't have KYC. But like, why did we just like assume like stable coins? Like, why are we just cool with this? Why are we cool with this concept?
No idea.
Like, sats are my stable coin.
Sats are my stablecoin. Bitcoin is my stablecoin. It's rooted in reality and stability and some volatility too. But you'll find that the volatility brings you stability because the volatility is usually up and to the right. It makes you feel good. Number go up, freaks. All the numbers are going up. RHR episode numbers went up today. The number of dark net markets getting taken down is going up still. The German police, last thing on the list, took down DarkMarket and arrested the operator. We mentioned it earlier. It's in Barron's. As Matt mentioned, this is they're claiming to be the world's largest darknet marketplace.
Imagine calling your dark net market dark market.
Right.
Like, have some creativity.
At the time, DarkMarket nearly had 500,000 followers,
Yo,
2,400
if I ran a
vendors.
DarkMarket, I'd have the coolest name. Oh my god. Apologies, freaks.
What would it be?
I don't know, like Zeus, or
Taken.
it would probably be a Greek god. Medusa.
Dionysus. God of Wine.
Right? Like there's so many good options. Oh, but
Right.
I'm just gonna call it DarkMarket. It's like we're lazy as fuck.
yeah, it's the product that matters, not the name.
Do you think that's actual Max Kaiser in the comments?
I don't know if it is.
Trump's Tavern.
What's up, Max? Puppy Sales in the chat now. Puppy Sale.
Well, Puppy Sale's been in the chat the whole time. Puppy
I
Sale's like dedicated.
I thought we put Puppy Sale down.
I killed Puppy Sale, but it was properly distributed.
Well, fake Max Kaiser has announced that he's a fake Max. So
he's fake Max. Okay, that pretty much sums it up.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Max Kaiser just ruined the stream. Yeah, I guess that's everything we got on the list. What else? Do we have anything to riff on here? I guess one thing I've been meaning to mention over the last few weeks, but always forgot. Now it's on the top of my head. Maybe old news at this point, but Hong Kong completely, utterly just under.
This was the year in review when you asked me why I was so bearish. I was like, we fucking lost them, man. They're gone. They're over. They're done.
There was something in the last 3 weeks that happened, correct?
Surfer Jim's real. Yes, Jim. You're the most real thing in her world.
But yeah. So I'm pretty sure they're arresting any
fucked up.
Yeah, any politicians that aren't in line with the CCP.
They're literally creating the censorship playbook of the 21st century. Like, if you want to look what happens when you have an authoritarian government turn into a very connected digital society, it's China taking over Hong Kong. That's what that is. And you had a free society of Hong Kong that was very free speech focused, that was very digital, that a lot of things were being logged, but they trusted their government, right? And then when things turned, the Chinese government took it against them, right? And they had all this data ready to go. And that's the concern, right? The concern is that you sit in a government where you feel comfortable and you're recklessly just releasing all this information. And I'm not talking down to people. I am doing this right now. I trust my government enough not to throw me into a fucking gulag for talking my own fucking mind. But my face is here. My name is here. People know who I am. I got my IP address that's getting publicly broadcast. Like these things are known, right? But I'm trusting that my government's not going to fucking completely turn on me. And that's what happened in Hong Kong. And then their government completely turned on them. And then China just completely just destroyed them. And then just took all that information and used it against them. So these are things that people need to keep in mind. It's fucked. It's fucked. And then that's why, like, I got so triggered. And the freaks know, like, people should not get triggered. Like, it's weakness. But at the same time, like, we had people saying, like, oh, Happy New Year. Like, everything's going to be great. Like, blah, blah. Like, fuck that shit, guys. Like, this is wartime. Like, we're fucking dealing with this shit. Like, you have to deal with this shit. Like, we have to be ready. We have to be prepared. Get ready.
It's time to steamroll, bitches. We have the opportunity to. If you want to pick up, you don't have to pick up a rifle and go to war anymore to fight these battles. You can get on your computer, stack some sats, run a node, contribute to some code, contribute to some education efforts, getting the word out there. The opportunity is right in front of you. And that's, again, harping this back to my conversation with Michael Krieger. It's no more whining. We can't be whining and asking these people to do things for us anymore. We can't, like, ban Trump from Twitter. Like, he's fucking inciting violence. Kick Antifa off. FinCEN's doing this to us. Steve Munchabut's doing this, and I'm guilty of it. I'm very guilty of it. Like, no more whining. No more fucking whining. Just fucking get out there and build the change you want to see in the world. It's never been more attainable or more accessible than it is today, January 14th, 2021. Let's do it, freaks. Let's steamroll these motherfuckers. They're dumb. They're evil. They're degenerate. They're smile fuckers. They don't give a fuck about you. And you shouldn't give a fuck about them. Bitcoin gives us the opportunity to distance ourselves from them. Hey, you want to go do that degen warmongering pedo shit over here? We're going to go do Bitcoin. Okay? Get the fuck out of here.
What do you mean by smile fuckers?
Smile fuckers. Somebody will smile right in your face and they're like fucking you too. They're like, yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that. But
Guilty.
Hey, I'm here to save you. But I'm really, really plotting to fuck over your life in my mind right now.
I've done that before. Guilty.
Yeah.
That's fucked up. But you know, you should be prepared. You should be prepared with the smile fuckers. They're gonna come for you.
Oh, is it like a porn thing?
No, I mean, I just think that like you shouldn't expect that the people that are going to come for you are going to be like, I am your enemy and I am coming for you. You know,
No,
like, you can't expect that. That's what a smile fucker is, right? A smile fucker is someone's like, I'm on your side, but like I'm really planning against you and I'm just trying to collect information to destroy you, right?
Yeah, I'm here to protect you.
Which is, I think, is completely fair in love and war, right?
Hey,
like that is what you should expect.
Hey, Christine Lagarde, we should work together. I really,
Yeah.
really think we could be productive.
Yeah, there you go. I would 100% work with her.
Yeah, Christine, let's do it.
That's the point. You need to have the people that's what it's total war. That's what it's called.
You know what? We're gonna smile fuck our way to victory here. We're gonna smile fuck them right back.
I never heard it as like a negative terminology. That's interesting to me.
Yeah, smile fucker. Hey. Freaks, thank you for joining us in the chat. Thank you for joining us if you're listening via your favorite podcasting app. Thank you for listening to us, whatever way you're listening to us, however you found us. If you're new to Tales from the Crypt, welcome. We welcome you, freaks. If a lot of this is going over your head, don't worry. It's going to happen for a little bit as you get up to date with Bitcoin and what's going on. I promise you'll learn via osmosis as we continue to cover these subjects. If you're liking the content, this was helpful, please smash that like button, smash that subscribe button, turn the notifications on, share it. Again, we're in a battle for information here, and we're trying to get as much quality information out to as many people as possible so that they can get to freedom quicker.
Stay humble, stack the fucking sats.
Peace and love, freaks. Still live.